Hey guys, one of my viewers posted a link to the upcoming patch notes, and I thought that would be kind of cool to go through and give them a first impression. I did start looking at some of these on my phone, and then I had the idea. There's a YouTuber slash streamer that I really enjoy for Dota 2, whose name is Purge, and Purge will go through and do patch note commentaries and kind of give his thoughts, his opinions. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to try and do this ourselves. Um, this one is probably pretty noteworthy because Dead by Daylight has, or Behavior, who is the company that works on Dead by Daylight, has announced that there are going to be some very significant changes coming through. And we kind of know about a bunch of these, but I thought this would be a really neat opportunity to go through, kind of look at what they're planning on doing, see some of the specific changes that we're going to be expecting to see. There's a lot of chatter that we've had multiple times in the stream about perks like NOED, perks like Dead Hard, how we'd like to see them changed, and it looks like that's going to be covered in here, as far as I can tell. There's a few changes that I don't expect to see, but are things that I've started thinking about that I think would add a lot of health to the game. The primary one, namely, being exit gates. I think that the current strategy for survivors to 99 an exit gate, which is to get the exit gate to 99%, and then leave it there, is interesting, but I don't think it's overall the most fun. I think that it kind of undermines the purpose of the end game collapse and is kind of a way that survivors can get around it. I'd really like to see eventually in Dead by Daylight, if a survivor gets off the door begins to regress. Think like a generator with ruin. Survivors could still work around it with things like keeping a survivor on it and just having them continue to tap it. But then that fully commits one survivor to maintaining the door and having it there. So if you have a situation where there's one survivor on hook, you only have two survivors that can go for the rescue instead of all three. If you want to keep that exit gate 99, that's just something that I think would require more coordination and create a more challenging end game for Swifts, because right now I think it's a little too easy for survivors to guarantee that everybody gets out. Um, if all four survivors are up going into the endgame collapse. But anyways, that was a whole separate tangent. We're here to see what updates they have. That was one that I've been thinking about for a while that I think is interesting and is I would really like to see in the game at some point. So Behavior, if you ever see this, which I know you probably won't, but if anybody from there sees this, I do think regressing exit gates would be a very interesting addition. I think it would be very interesting to playtest that and kind of see how it looks. Anyways, let's go in and start looking at this. Okay. During our 6th anniversary broadcast, we announced a new progression system. Yep, we know that things are changing. In a meta shifting perk overhaul, we know that they're looking to make top tier, most used meta perks less useful, and that they are looking to make underutilized perks hopefully a little bit more valuable. And they said they were going to be shifting older perks that used to have a place in the game but no longer do. So we're thrilled to say that both initiatives will headline the upcoming mid-chapter. Fantastic. So it's cool to see that not only are they talking about doing this, but they're very clearly going to be pulling it out too. It's nice to see that this isn't something that's really far down the road, but that's coming for us pretty quickly. That's always nice. From the onset, it was important for us to release these changes as a package. I think that's totally fair. I think that there would be a really weird interim period if they kind of like piecemealed it. So kind of putting everything out at once seems like the right choice. Our objective is to shake up the current meta, provide alternatives, and make perks easier to earn. Really like this last one. You have to put a ton of time into Dead by Daylight right now to get all the perks. And the more survivors you get, or the more killers you get, the more perks that get put into the pool. It's almost impossible in some situations to get the exact perks you want on a killer if you already have most of the perks unlocked and available. I'm still hunting for perks on Dredge that I'd really, really like to have on Dredge, and it's just a total roll of the dice on what you get. We were also careful to consider the reason why this meta exists and address any base game issues it may have been concealing. So this is interesting. This wasn't necessarily something that I was expecting, but base gameplay changes would be fantastic. I think core DVD for me is really fun. I very much enjoy it. There are definitely some pain points and some things that feel a little bit bad. And while I think that changing perks can do a lot for that, I do think that it's always valuable to look at your core gameplay and kind of see if there are ways you can tweak it or adjust it. And I'm super happy to see the behavior is doing that. And this post will be detailing the upcoming changes, all of which will be available for testing on the PTB next week. Okay, cool. So we're going to be seeing this very quickly. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. Progression system, I'm probably, and you guys can see here, I know that I'm covering the bottom thing, which is just other languages, but you can kind of see the overall tracker right here. So the overhaul progression system. Progression system is very interesting in DBD. You have a blood web that expands in complexity as you level characters up. As you play games, you earn blood points. You spend those blood points to unlock nodes on the blood web. When you hit higher levels, the entity will start blocking nodes so you don't get all of them. It's very cool. It's very interesting. It can be frustrating when you're going for specific perks and can't find them. And it's very expensive. Once you start getting a bunch of killers to level 50 and you're trying to get perks on all of them, you end up spending a ton of time and a ton of blood points hoping to find the perks that you want and then hoping that you can rank them up to tier 3. So let's see what they're doing with this. Collecting all the perks has been an important goal for many players. It's definitely true. However, since both the number of perks and characters are constantly increasing, the grind expands at an exponential rate with every new chapter. To address this, we're completely overhauling the way perks are earned. Fantastic. Adding new rewards, which I like, and making completion easier than ever before. Okay. So in the current system, you must reach level 40 on a given character to unlock all their teachable perks. That already creates a relatively high barrier to entry in order to get those perks unlocked. Especially for somebody who's playing casually and just picks up a couple games a day. Or not even a day, but like just a couple games in a week. It can be very hard to unlock those perks. And then not only unlock them, but then get them on other killers or other survivors that you want them on. Then find those perks in Blood Wars for every other character. Yep. In order to unlock all these new perks on every character by the time the next chapter releases, you would need to pay an estimated average of 4.1 hours every day with this new system. Oh, with this new system, that estimate decreases to an average of 1.01 hours each day, and that's not even factoring in blood point bonuses from events, perks, or offerings. Let me reread that real quick. Okay. In order to unlock all the new perks by the time the next chapter releases. Got it. Okay. Which for someone like a streamer like me, like that's still a lot. 4.1 every day. I stream 5 days a week right now, and I'll stream for about 6 hours, but not all of those are DBD streams. I would have to dedicate all of my streaming time to DBD, and even then, I probably need a little bit more time on top of that to make this a possibility, which is just not something that I'm interested in, not something that seems fun, and I'm happy that behavior is kind of identifying that. In other words, this is the single largest reduction in the grind we've ever made, cutting it by roughly 75%. I love that. I am curious if or what they're going to add to this. So cutting this grind is great, but it does mean that like for someone like me and a lot of streamers, we're gonna lose things to spend blood points on. And it would be great and I think important to have a blood point sink somewhere. I mean, I guess that I could put blood points on a bunch of other survivors, and I guess you're always going for add-ons and stuff like that, so there is always value in continuing to kind of go through the web. So maybe it's not important. Yeah. Okay. No, this is probably just fine. But let's see everything they're doing because I legitimately don't know. The teachable rarity is no more. Now perks are tied directly to prestige. Interesting. Prestiging a character for the first time will instantly unlock the tier 1 versions of their unique perks for all other killers or survivors, making them immediately available for use without ever opening the blood web. Okay, so I've just got the dredge. The dredge comes with 3 new perks. I prestige the dredge, and all of his perks at tier 1 become available on other killers. Cool. Making them immediately available without ever opening the blood web. Okay, cool. Prestiging a character for the second and third time will unlock tier 2 and 3 versions of their unique perks. Alternatively, higher tier versions of their perks will appear randomly in the blood web. So you have the choice. So if I play Dredge, but I don't like love Dredge, I can get dredge up, I can prestige them once, and then every killer has tier 1 dredge perks. So if dissolution is something I'm looking for a lot of people, what is it, septic touch, if that's something that I'm trying to get, first tier prestige, I've got it on everybody, which means that I've just cut out all of those bloodwed hunts for not just 1 but 3 perks, which is absolutely massive. Um, and then I can either, from that point, choose to keep playing dredge and prestige him up, or I can just completely give up on dredge and then go back and play those other killers and search through the blood web. So you kind of have an either or scenario. So if you have somebody who's like, say, a Huntress main, like I know a bunch of people who like they just play Huntress. Huntress is their jam. That's who they love. They just play Huntress. It probably makes more sense for them to just, prestige a killer to tier 1 and then just go play Huntress and find the stuff in the blood web, because it's probably going to cost them fewer blood points because they just play that one killer and they're totally happy with that. For me, I play everything and I play everything on everyone, so prestiging everybody up is going to be really, really valuable for me. Um, I like this. I like the functionality. I like how you kind of get your choice. And so if you really are just a killer main, you can kind of go just for that. And the same thing for Survivor. Like I've already got Nia at tier 3. She's already got a lot of perks. I can just prestige the other survivors once, and then use the blood web on Nia to get everything up. This is really cool. Okay, so this is the explanation. This should just hopefully confirm what I just said. Say you prestige the tapper, this will instantly unlock tier 1 versions of Agitation, Brutal Strength, and Unnerving Presence on all killers. Tier 2 and 3 versions of all these perks will now appear randomly in the blood web, so I can go onto other killers and possibly find them. Or I can keep playing Trapper, Prestige Trapper, get tier 2 perks, Prestige Trapper again, get tier 3 perks. Fantastic. Sorry, I've got a paintbrush and it's just staying with me now. I'm here with it. Um, very frequently when I'm talking, I like as a kid, I would just have something in my hand constantly and just be playing with it. So that's probably going to happen when we do these playthroughs. There's invariably going to be something in my hand at some point. This way, you'll only need to earn perks once to use them on every character. The perks you've unlocked will be instantly available on any new characters as well, making them easier to pick up and play without a substantial. This is cool. Okay, so it does ruin a little bit something that I like doing, which is the feeling of being forced to play a new survivor or a new killer with just their perks. Um, because there are certain perks like the twins coup de grace. I hated the idea of coup de grace, like a perk that I only get to use 5 times max and I can misuse. Coup de grace seemed like the absolute worst perk in the world, but when I play new killers, I force myself to play with their perks. Um, and coup de grace ended up being amazing. Like I would get a couple of hits that I had no right getting. There were times where survivors would dead hard me because I just got extra distance. I'd still just like be lunging up to them and get them, and it was so cool. So I guess what I'll say for this, it's not so much like this is bad. Just be careful, and if you see perks that you're looking at and you think they're bad, I encourage you to think about still giving them a choice, because you're gonna eventually be hitting a point where survivors and killers, you're gonna be coming in with all of these amazing abilities that you already know are good and are already comfortable. Definitely try out the new perks as they come out. That's the one thing that I'm worried this will push people away from. I'm worried this will um, be less effective at incentivizing trying kind of new and different builds as new perk sets come out. So hopefully people don't do that. Okay, this is the one that I'm really interested in, and it kind of has an interesting implication for my channel. So let's see what it says. Prestiging has always been a bit of a dilemma. Do you give up everything for bragging rights, or do you keep what you have to minimize the grind? Now that prestiging is the main way to unlock perks, we wanted to make the choice clear. Prestiging a character will no longer remove their perks, items, add-ons, or offerings. So all the things you've been building up on the blood web, you keep them. Perk slots will also remain unlocked after prestiging, so you don't go down to just one perk slot. You're no longer a baby killer. You've got the ability to play with your full 4 perks, which is great. Honestly, if they're doing this, I don't even see much of a point in only allowing one perk slot at a character level 1 anyways. It seems a little bit archaic at this point if this is the direction they're going. Just let survivors have all their perk slots. With no reason to prestige, or with no reason not to prestige, prestiging a character is no longer optional. After reaching level 50, you'll receive a special blood web with only a single node. Purchasing this node will increase your prestige level and reset your character's level to 1. Interesting. So you hit level 50, you have to prestige, you've done it, you've hit the peak, start again. Which there's not much reason not to do that anyways. Higher levels give you access to things like the iridescent um, add-ons and stuff like that, so there will be some inherent limiting in that, because if you just keep a character at level 50 right now, you can continue to farm for iridescent items, which don't show up until, a couple levels in, but the low levels are so easy to level up, it probably won't matter much anyways. This is a strange decision, in my opinion. I don't think it's bad, it's a little weird to me. I'm curious what the next pieces say. There might be a reason for it as we go down. It just feels strange that you're forced to prestige. Um, Interesting. I don't see why you wouldn't, but it's weird that it's a requirement now. With prestige now being the main way to progress, it'll no longer be as impressive to have your characters maxed out at prestige level 3. It only made sense to have a new way to recognize our most committed players, so we've increased the prestige limit to 100. Woo, baby. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I like that. But what would more prestige levels be without rewards? Great. Reaching prestige levels 4, 5, and 6 will now award that character's bloody prestige cosmetics, once again signifying those who went above and beyond. Now the prestiging for the first 3 times awards perks. Okay, cool. I'm very cool with this for the low levels. It only made sense to move these higher. If you've already unlocked these cosmetics, don't worry, we won't be taking them away from you. You've earned it. Cool. For completionists, prestiging levels 7, 8, and 9 will each grant one of the character's unique perks as a charm. We also wanted to highlight your dedication to your favorite characters, no matter how many times you prestige them. Once the trial is over, your prestige level will now be shown in the space previously occupied by grades. Okay. Those who spend millions of blood points stockpiling add-ons for your favorite characters will now have a way of showcasing your hard work to the world. Interesting. Sorry, I've got a sandwich coming. I just want to track it real quick. I want to see where it's coming. Oh, it's out for delivery. Nice. Okay, cool. There's a point where the door is probably going to knock because my sandwich is here. I've got cleaning people that are coming over as well. So just be aware that at some point the dogs behind me who are currently napping very peacefully are going to go ballistic. Um, but that's just the price you have to pay sometimes. Interesting. So this map down here right now, we have these nodes right here. They used to, oh, sorry, here. They used to show previously the kind of rank. So like this is an Ash 4 killer we can see because they have this up here. That used to be what was shown here. Um, and now we're going to be seeing prestige levels. This is interesting. Do they keep talking about it? They don't. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of give my input. I This is very mixed in my mind. Um, so this is gonna definitely create some salt in post game chatter, right? You're gonna have somebody who this will also create some interesting issues with MMR being hidden, which I just want to say for the record, I like MMR being hidden. I like not seeing my MMR and knowing what it is. I'm not the most competitive player. I would say that I'm pretty middle of the road. Um, but people will always be looking for a way to quantify their skill level versus the skill of the person that they went against. I think that's an inherent thing that just happens whenever you're playing a game with any level of competition. DBD is definitely a game where you as survivors are competing against a single killer. And without the ability to see MMR, without the ability to kind of see your rank, whether you're Ash or Iridescent, this is now becoming the only visible marker for a player's skill, and by skill it's hours played. And it's important to remember that hours played, while it does give you experience, does not necessarily mean that you are a more or less skilled person. You can have newer players that catch on to ideas, concepts, and really pick up things quickly and just innately are drawn to a game that are very skilled. And you can have players that have to put hundreds, thousands of hours into a game to reach that same level. People just have different innate abilities to develop their skills. Um, and I think that there's a little bit of a misconception on skill level there, where sometimes people think that a lot of time means a lot of skill. And while a lot of time enables the opportunity to develop skill, it doesn't necessarily correlate directly, right? But what will happen here, and my concern with this, is that you're going to see that let's say I'm a Huntress main. I only play Huntress. But I'm okay at the game. I'm just okay. Um, but all of my blood points go into Huntress, so Huntress is prestiged, and we have this exact game with all the survivors like 8, 6, 5, 7, and then you have like 50, a level 50 prestige Huntress, because based on MMR and skill, I'm about as skilled as these survivors are. I get a 4K, and I kill all of the survivors. I feel like it's pretty reasonable to assume that out of these 4 people, you're going to get a decent amount of the population who's going to feel salty that single digit prestige people were going up against a 50 prestige Huntress, right? They're going to be like, wow, like, how did I go up against somebody with this much time in the game? Like, that's unfair, that's broken, it's imbalanced, like, this is not okay. And then you're going to have games where you have that exact same scenario: 50 prestige Huntress, baby survivors, all the survivors get out, the Huntress gets one hook, like, it's just an awful game, and the Huntress doesn't get anything. And now the survivors have the opportunity to kind of dump on the killer here and be like, wow, you're so bad. Look at all that time in the game. You have no skill, blah, blah, blah. I think that this is cool. I like the idea of being able to show stuff off. I like the idea that if we see like Meg here, like, I don't know what all of this, like, why or how these icons are different, but they very clearly are. And Meg has like the most like little entity tendril things going on here, so that's neat. Um, and I'm not sure if this coloration is not so much your rank, but maybe it is showing this here, like your actual, like your Ash, but that doesn't make sense. There's definitely some more visual stuff going on here than what they're telling us right here. Um, this is just going to be an opportunity in a weird place where we're going to see some salt. There's going to be some people that are unhappy because of what these numbers are, and they're going to extrapolate that because somebody has a lot of prestige level, that they're really, really good, or they're going to use that as an opportunity to flex on somebody. Um, so this will be interesting. Overall, I like it. Like, that all there doesn't really affect or bother me, but you're gonna have a lot of people who get upset, and a lot of people who um, think that because they beat a level 50 Huntress that they're the best, or a lot of people who think that going up against a level 50 Huntress is completely unfair. Um, so this is I'll be very curious to see what the community's feedback is on this one. This is the one piece so far, like, out of all this prestiging and stuff, that I look at, I'm like, chill. I'm a Hey, let me just do a quick look. We may edit this out. You may just get to, see my torso real quick. Oh, yep, food's here. Okay, I'll be just a second. I'm gonna mute my mic so you don't deal with the barking. I've acquired Jimmy John's. I'm excited. So yeah, this will be interesting. I like that there's a way that you can kind of flex a little bit and show that you've got a lot of prestige. I think it's cool for people who, get really excited about a killer that they're playing or a survivor. You're a Meg main, you're a Nia main. Maybe you're all about Kate Denson. You're one of those Dwights running around in your little Christmas outfit. It's going to be a cool way to be able to show that off, and it's going to be able to show off how much time you enjoy sitting in front of a computer, murdering people. So overall, the more I think about it, the more I like it. I just I'm already a little annoyed that I'm going to have to deal with people asking how we're playing against each other when those people have less time than me, prestiging on whatever their favorite survivor is, and they're just as good as I am. Okay, cool. Shrine of Secrets. Um, Shrine of Secrets. Okay, unlike before, where the Shrine of Secrets would offer teachable perks that then needed to be found in blood webs, the shrine will now offer you the purchase, allow you to purchase perks directly. Cool. Purchasing a perk through the Shrine of Secrets will make Tier 1 version of it immediately available on all killers or survivors, much like Prestige. Cool. Yeah, makes sense. Subsequent tiers of that perk will also begin appearing in blood webs. You may also purchase a perk again to increase its tier. Okay, cool. So if let's say there's BBQ and Chili, which I did see that one's being changed, but let's just assume old school BBQ and Chili, which is like, in my opinion, the reason that you use the Shrine of Secrets. Um, I see that there is this highly desirable perk that is in the blood web that is locked behind a franchise killer. Um, I buy it for the 2,000 iridescent shards. I get it tier 1 on all of the killers that I own. Is it then that I can, in that same shrine, buy it again for 4,000 iridescent shards and have it at tier 2? Or I could buy it for 6,000 iridescent shards and have it for tier 3. I'm guessing that's how they intend it to work, which will be interesting. Just being able to get a perk like that's kind of cool. It gives another reason to really care about your iridescent shards and kind of pool them if you're still in a situation where you don't have all the killers, you don't have them all prestige, you don't have all the survivors. Um, okay, yeah, seems great. I like it because it's giving optionality, right? I think the Shrine of Secrets is very niche. I think Shrine of Secrets is great for people who don't necessarily have a ton of time to play the game or just want to play a couple people, but there are certain things they want, and giving uh, players an opportunity to get something without necessarily needing to get the killers. Um, I like it, and I like what they're doing with it. I think that this works, in my opinion, really well with how they're changing Prestige. Um, it seems like this is going to be still way less efficient um, than just working towards unlocking killers. But obviously, there are franchise killers that are locked behind um, real money, and using the Shrine of Secrets in this way will give you the option to continue to get those things. This is great. This is really good. I don't see any negative to it. The fact that you buy it and it's just instantly available on all of your killers at tier 1, and then you can choose to just boost it up right then and there. This is good. I do still think, in general, my advice to anybody with iridescent shards is if you've got iridescent shards, don't spend the 2,000 to unlock a specific perk. Spend the 9,000 to unlock the killer if you're playing killer. Survivor, honestly, I think Shrine of Secrets gets a little bit more value because survivors are kind of reskins of one another. Whereas killers bring kind of unique, interesting, different gameplays. So for killer perks, just go unlock the killer. If you can do the killer with iridescent shards, save it up. Just go unlock the killer, play the killer. You can get all 3 perks from the killer. Um, I think it's way better to unlock killers with iridescent shards. Survivor perks could get more interesting because you're essentially playing on a reskinned version of survivors. You're not going to necessarily have, well, with prestiging, you will have all the perks on that survivor. Interesting. I This is way more flexible. I think this makes Shrine of Secrets more tempting and more interesting. Um, I think Shrine of Secrets is valuable for people who are in an earlier stage of the game than I am. I'm hitting the point where I've got pretty much all of the killer perks unlocked so that they at least show up in the blood web and I can prestige most of my killers right now. This will be very interesting. Cool. I don't know that I care enough about it to keep thinking about it, but in general, I would say iridescent shards, in my opinion, from a killer perspective, iridescent shards are still going to be way more valuable being saved up and used on individual killers than it will be in the Shrine of Secrets. But if you're just looking for perks, if you have all the killers you want to be able to play, you know, just, yeah, use Shrine of Secrets. This seems great. I really like it. Cool. Okay, transitioning to the new system. With many spending hundreds, if not thousands of hours playing Dead by Daylight over the years, we want to make sure that everyone is rewarded fairly. When the system releases, oh, this is the rewards. I've been sitting on a bunch of killers that I could prestige, and I'm curious what we're going to do here. Will be an appropriate number of prestige levels based on how many perk tiers they've unlocked. If you've left all your characters at level 15 focused on unlocking perks, your work won't be for nothing. Oh, cool. Okay. It's also important that you don't lose anything when the system is updated. You will keep any perks and bloody prestige cosmetics that you've already unlocked. I don't think this is going to be a problem, but man, if that gets messed up, that's going to be a nightmare to try for them to try and deal with and sort out and kind of untangle. I hope that goes smoothly. Those who reach Prestige 3 before the update will receive a special Prestige icon to recognize their achievements and commemorate the perks and add-ons they lost in the process. Interesting. We'll be hosting a live stream soon on the PTB to show the updated system in action and answer any questions you might have ahead of the PTB. This is interesting. So when they say this, and this live stream is going to be important to answer this question for me. So when they talk about this, a special prestige icon, does that mean that in here I'll have a special prestige icon on twins if I'm prestige 3 on twins? If so, like, oh damn, I gotta play some DBD. Like, there are definitely some killers I want to get to prestige 3 that I just haven't prestiged because I didn't care all that much. Interesting. We might have to do some work on DBD. Matchmaking has been a major focus over the past year. Okay, cool. So matchmaking incentives. So that's the progression system there. This last one's the most interesting. I don't fully understand exactly what this means. I don't know if this is just you personally when you're looking at your killers and survivors, if you see that icon, or if that's something that shows up in the post game. If it shows up in the post game, it's very valuable to me. I very highly value that. If it doesn't show up in the post game, nah, I don't really care. Like it'd be cool on stream to be able to show like a bunch of these things that I have prestige 3, but for the most part, I don't care. Let's see about matchmaking incentives. So this is playing as Survivor, probably playing with Swift, right? This is the balance between the number of survivors and the number of killers. Let's see what they have to say. Matchmaking has been a major focus over the past year, and we're maintaining that throughout year 7. Though many changes are planned to improve wait times and match quality, there are variables we can't control through code. Totally makes sense. You don't get to choose whether or not people want to go in and play Survivor. You don't get to choose if someone wants to be a killer. It's a distribution of people playing each role. Exactly. If there's simply not enough people queuing for one role, the matchmaker's ability to create quality matches suffers. It makes a lot of sense. I think this is one of the areas where their skill-based matchmaking system is difficult to implement well with a game like DBD because it's asymmetric. You have two very different pools of people you're pulling from at any given moment. And if the only killers you have are highly skilled, highly experienced killers, in order to give a group of brand new survivors a game, you have to give them a more experienced killer. Um, which is just an inherent issue that will always exist with matchmaking with a game like this. It's not survivors against survivors. It's not just killers against killers. It's two different pools of people being paired up. Um, Being an asymmetrical game, Dead by Daylight works best when there's roughly 4 survivors for each killer. If this 4-to-1 ratio deviates too far, matchmaking time and quality will start to degrade. For a while, there's been a much larger population of survivors than killers, which makes a lot of sense. Like, I can tell you as a streamer, My experience streaming playing Survivor is so much more chill and relaxed than it is playing Killer. When I'm playing Killer, I'm like hard focused on the game and I'm just watching the game. I'm just looking at it and I'm very rarely able to really interact with chat during matches because like I'm never not on. I'm never not thinking about my next move, my next step, what do I have to do? Where Survivor, I get on that generator and the killer chases somebody else. I'm just hanging out like watching you guys, and every now and then I get an indicator and I have to press a button, and it's great. Um, so that being said, I love Killer. Like I think Killer is way more fun for me to play, and I really enjoy it. I do like Survivor, and I candidly enjoy playing Survivor on stream because I get to talk to people more. But it's a very different experience and a very different game. It's interesting because I feel like Survivor's where you're supposed to feel afraid and you're supposed to get kind of that adrenaline kick. What I know is for Killer is that like I'm always on. Like you're just always like kind of planning your next move and like how you're gonna maneuver and what you're gonna do and where you need to go. And like I'm way more stressed playing Killer because I have so many opportunities to mess something up. And if I mess something up as Killer, like I am the team playing Killer. And if I screw up, like my side of the game just got so much worse where I make a mistake as survivor, I've got three other people who are working and doing things and hopefully like making good moves and still helping out, so my mistakes as survivor are way less impactful. Not that they can't just like end a game, but overall I feel like I'm allowed to make mistakes as a survivor and I'm allowed to relax a little bit when I'm not being hunted by the killer. Uh, too many survivors will cause the survivor queue times to increase, while too few survivors will cause killer queue times to increase. To complicate things further, this ratio varies greatly depending on your region, rating, and time of day. In some regions, we've observed an excess of survivors queuing, while others too few. Oftentimes, this will change over the course of the day. Totally makes sense. Different waves of people are playing. You're going to have different quantities of people queuing up for each of the roles. Like this is an inherent issue that the game's always going to have. Um, Even with them asking how they're going to improve this, um, there's nothing they're going to be able to do to ever fully fix this. And the incentives will, I think, be great. And some of the things I've heard them talk about prior to like sending out these updated notes, I think will be good for the health of the game. But this isn't like a problem that you solve. This is an issue that exists because this is an asymmetric game, and I don't think that it's realistic or fair to expect behavior to be able to just like remove this problem entirely. But it's going to be cool to see that they're taking steps to help minimize it. Whenever the number of killers to survivors differ too much from the ideal ratio, we'll offer a blood point bonus to anybody who opts to play the needed role. This bonus ranges from 25% to 100% depending on demand levels. These bonuses will be shown on the main menu beside each role's play button, as well as beside the ready button. I would like, honestly, because of what they're doing with the progression system overhaul and reducing the need for blood points to grind up, I'd almost like to see like a little bit of iridescent shards thrown in there. Like 3 to 5 iridescent shards. Something super low, something that doesn't give you very much, but just like a couple iridescent shards. Because I think blood points with the new progression system are way less valuable. So this incentive, while cool, is also going to be less impactful. But I do like this. I mean, this is great. These bonuses double as an indicator of which roles currently has the fastest queue times. That's also cool. It's good to know, like, hey, how fast are the queue times? Like, how good are things? Um, this might disincentivize people from playing a certain role. If they get on and see that you get 100% extra blood points for playing killer right now, they're going to be like, man, do I really want to sit in a long queue as survivor? Because clearly there's, like, not just are there killers that are needed, but, like, there's a lot of them. There's a really low killer population right now. Do I really want to queue up right now? So that's the one way that this could backfire a little bit for him. But overall, it's way better to show that there is an imbalance and work on fixing it, I think, than for somebody to sign in and see that. Because hopefully they'll sign in, they'll see that, and then maybe some of them, if you're playing solo survivor, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna murder people instead. Uh, Matchmaking incentives are unique to you and dependent on your matchmaking ratings and region. You may see a bonus for playing killer while your friend sees one for playing survivor. Interesting. This is intended. Bonuses are dependent on which roles are needed to improve matchmaking at the time. For example, killers may be needed where you are, but there may be an excess of killers where your friend is playing. Your matchmaking ratings and region. Okay. This is going to create an interesting situation. Me and my buddy both log in and we're chatting. We're in Discord. We're both going to play DVD. Maybe we're going to play together. Maybe we won't. I'm going to ask him because I just have to. Hey, what bonus do you have? And I'm going to have a 25% survivor bonus. And he's going to be like, I have a 25% killer bonus. Behavior's been very careful, I think, about not showing matchmaking and kind of hiding that. This is going to pull the curtain back a little bit. And I'm curious how they break this up. So region is easy, right? Like if you're in different regions, that makes a lot of sense. But the fact that matchmaking rating is also a factor in this. So if I go in with my friend and we each see different bonuses and we're in the same region, it means that we're in a different matchmaking. I'm just gonna say it's a bracket, right? It means we're in a different matchmaking bracket, and one of us is better than the other. And then another friend can come in, and maybe they see what one person sees but not the other. This will be interesting because this is going to peel back the curtain a little bit on where people are in their matchmaking brackets. Like probably just within groups of friends, you probably won't see this like expand very much, but like it's okay. Okay. Interesting. All I can say is that I hope that if I see Outstarve, well, Outstarve and I are different regions, so it won't matter. I hope that if I see whoever the super cool, popular, highly skilled U.S. player is, that I always see the same perk thing, because then I can at least assume that, hey, if they have the same bonus that I do, I'm the same skill level as them, and therefore I'm one of the greatest U.S. DVD players in the world, or in my region, I suppose. Uh, I get this. I understand this. This is one that I don't love. Um, Specifically, matchmaking ratings. It makes sense, and it's going to help improve the quality of their matchmaking. Overall, this is good um, because it means that they'll hopefully, with the incentive of blood points, more people will play at their skill level. But there's a lot I don't know about the matchmaking system and that I don't understand. I haven't bothered to look into it because, quite frankly, I don't personally care too much about matchmaking. I just play the game and I have a good time. Um, but from a balance perspective, if you are mostly a survivor player, because most of the times from what I've experienced, it's survivor queues that are long and killer queues that are short. Therefore, you frequently need more killers. Um, it'll be interesting to see if this creates an influx of killers to get extra blood points, and if that influx of killers, like, because the killer and survivor matchmaking, as far as I'm aware, are separated. My killer skill is not associated to my survivor skill. Um, and therefore, if there is a greater pool of killers that are needed, then this is gonna take time for this particular piece to really shake out because they're doing matchmaking ratings, which is again still good, but you're going to have a larger pool of people who play less killer and therefore probably have a lower killer MMR because they haven't played games to increase their MMR. And then it'll take them time before they kind of get up into the higher brackets to be higher skilled killers. So I think that this will help solve issues for uh, lower MMR and newer players first, and I don't know that the higher skilled people are going to necessarily see the benefits of this as quickly, because it will take time for the population of killers, which will be relatively new people hopping in to receive this bonus. It'll take time for them to kind of tier up and rank up. Um, but I do think that this is something that over an unknown amount of time will eventually help create, a larger pool of people who feel comfortable playing in a specific role. Uh, Playing in a group can also net you a bonus if survivors are needed at the time. Sorry, that was like a whole tangent. Let's keep going. However, this will only apply if your group's average matchmaking rating is currently in demand. We believe these matchmaking incentives will improve both queue times and the matchmaker's ability to create quality matches. So another question I have is, does this mean, again, I don't know anything about matchmaking, does this mean that when I queue up with my friends in a Swift, I've got a friend who's brand new, I've got myself who's very experienced, I've got a friend who's middle of the road, and then let's say our fourth friend is also brand new. So does that mean that the game takes the aggregate of the four survivors and their matchmaking skill and tries to find a killer that meets that aggregate? Because it seems that's kind of what they're saying here, which is interesting. It has nothing to do with what this entire post is talking about, but I think a lot of what I'm seeing here, as somebody who hasn't read up or looked at any of the matchmaking, is that I'm getting a lot of information about how matchmaking works, but not kind of like the full understanding of it. Okay. This is something where, like, guys, I try not to pander for comments, but the comments do help the channel. So if you do want to comment, like, or subscribe, this would be very helpful for me. But this is where I'd actually really like your input. This section here, which is the section I'm candidly least interested in. But I'd love to know what you know about the matchmaking system, and like, is this stuff that we're covering and talking about right now, is this like creating new like information for us, or is this just always known and I just never cared or listened? Matchmaking incentives will be disabled if crossplay is turned off. As most players play with crossplay on, the system would be highly susceptible to manipulation, and switching roles would have a negligible effect on matchmaking. If you'd like to take advantage of these incentives, we strongly recommend to turn on crossplay through the settings menu. I play with crossplay. I don't see any reason not to. It's fine. This is fine. I think this is good. I'd rather have one big pool of people playing together than a bunch of small pools of people. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Gameplay updates. God, I see why. So one of the things I watch Purge, who does these, and I'll literally sit there and be painting my model, still working on word bearers right now, having a great time. Um, but I'll sit there and just put Purge on, and like it takes him hours to go through these things. And we're already at 48 minutes, so well, you're gonna see some of the beginning stuff's gonna get edited out because I started the video like 5 times and didn't like the start. So you'll see a slightly clipped project. Some of the most consistent feedback we receive centers around the perk meta. A handful of perks have a dominant usage rate, especially in higher skill matches. Naturally, the gameplay can feel stale when you see the same perks again and again. Going up against 4 survivors that all have Dead Hard, 3 survivors have Borrowed Time, 3 survivors have Decisive Strike. You probably have somebody in there with a Prove Thyself. Like, yes, there's very. I just play the game assuming that survivors have Dead Hard until they show me that they don't. And I pick up every survivor assuming they have Decisive Strike um, until they prove to me that they don't. In the past, we've addressed individual perks through various updates, but the odd meta change is not enough to shake things up. In this update, we're reworking and rebalancing 39 perks, meta included. We aim to reduce the reliance on the current meta while also providing many new options to experiment with. Before we can make meaningful changes to the meta, we needed to look at why these perks are so heavily used in the first place. While some perks are popular because of their strength, others are popular because they reduce the likelihood of an unfun situation. Therefore, we've prepared a few baseline changes to address some of these core gameplay issues. I think the second one, so obviously this makes a lot of sense. In my opinion, having strong meta perks is something that's always going to exist, and you're never going to be able to fully get rid of it. You can minimize it and try and bring things closer together, But then you risk running into a situation where all perks are kind of homogenized and nothing feels fun. I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft. I've played since vanilla. Um, and it was very interesting going back and playing some TBC Classic before I stopped because of weird business practices that Blizzard decided to, try and cover up that were not good in any way, shape, or form. But that's not a video about that. But it was very interesting going back to TBC Classic and playing that and realizing how incredibly different classes felt and how cool that was and how different that felt from Shadowlands, which was at the time of this recording the current expansion, um, because everything kind of feels the same in Shadowlands. And like, yes, Blizzard has worked to create some diversity, but overall, there's a huge amount of homogenization in the name of balance. And the one problem that behavior could run into in order to do these things is making perks not interesting because they want the perks to be balanced. And I hope that behavior is able to walk that very fine line where perks feel more balanced and you want to bring different perks, but perks don't feel useless and perks don't feel like they're all the same. I do really like the second piece right here. Others are popular because they reduce the likelihood of an unfun situation. I think that this is where fixing core gameplay issues in order to allow perks to feel more like bonuses and cool things that you can add as opposed to just like insurance and protection. Decisive Strike is an insurance perk. You take it because you're worried the killer is going to tunnel you. Borrowed Time is an insurance perk. You take it because you're worried that as soon as you get unhooked, the killer is going to go right back for you. And those aren't fun perks to take. Those are perks you take because you want to be competitive, you want to win, you want to do well in situations. It prevents you from taking cooler, fun, more interesting perks that aren't as strong. So the fact that they're looking at baseline changes is fantastic. So I did see this already. This is not net new for me, but we'll talk about it because I do think it's important. When looking at perks used by most killers, there's a very clear trend. Any perk that helps prevent generators from being powered, slowdown perks for short, are favored. Corrupt Intervention, Pop Goes the Wheasel, Scourge, Pain Resonance, Hex Ruin. Those are like most builds are going to have one of those, if not multiple. Many players feels like generators are powered too quickly without these perks, so we knew we needed to look at generators before making any perk changes. Slowdown perks should be an option, but not the only option to stay competitive. I am a killer main, so you have to understand that my perspective is typically colored from playing from the killer perspective. I do play Survivor, but I do agree that generators in general feel like they can be completed too quickly. And unless you're a killer that has the ability to provide really good global map pressure, it's very difficult to keep generators from popping gens. Um, so what are they doing, first of all? We have increased the time it takes to power a generator to 90 seconds up from 80 seconds. Okay, so it takes 10 more seconds for each generator. Survivors have to finish 5 generators, so in general, you're requiring about an extra minute of time working on generators, which is great. Um, that I think that's going to have a bigger impact than a lot of people might realize at first. 10 seconds doesn't feel like a lot, but when you spread that across 5 generators and you think about the fact that, yeah, probably for generator 1 or 2, we're not going to see much of a difference, but as we get to the third, fourth, fifth generator, that extra 10 seconds is a really big deal. So I like that. This is going to help in general killers who really struggle applying good global map pressure. So Myers is like the perfect example of a killer that really, really suffers because he's very powerful in one place, but it can only be one place at a time. And Myers needs time to stalk survivors in the beginning of the game in order to get his power up to really like get online and start playing the game. So things like this are going to help killers like Myers who really need setup time. It's going to help killers like Trapper, Hag who need to be able to get their traps up because right now if you're playing Trapper, Hag and you don't have Corrupt Intervention to really kind of slow down that start of the game, it's very, very tough for you to kind of get set up to start applying pressure. All the killers that require that kind of first step in the equation to kind of get ready for the match when the match has already started, this extra time is going to be huge. And then obviously really strong killers, it's still going to be good. But I think we're going to see a bigger impact for those killers that require setup time because they're now just being given more of it. The time it takes to complete a generator hasn't changed in a long time, but it's clear that they are being powered quicker than we'd like, which makes sense. Survivors have access to more toolboxes. They have more people are getting access to prove thyself and understand the value of that. It's inherently, as more people play the game and you get more experienced people with better items and brand new parts and stuff like that, generators are just going to go faster. People also understand how to play the game more efficiently, so they're going to be better about gens. By slowing them down slightly, we hope to give killers a bigger window to interrupt survivors, particularly at the beginning of the trial. I think that this difference is gonna. I think that there might be a little bit of a miss of the mark at the beginning of the trial. I think we're gonna see this in the mid game. I think that this bigger window is when you pop generator 1 and 2, which I think are still probably gonna be popped without much ability for the killer to stop them. But when you get to that, okay, the first two generators are popped. We're now working on our third. That's where I think the extra 10 seconds is really going to come in. Kicking a generator will now instantly remove 2.5% of the maximum progress. This is great. Oh, I love this. As a killer, I absolutely love this. I'm going up against Ania, who's got Iron Will. She's got Urban Evasion. I cannot find her. I kick the gen. I walk away. The gen is beginning to regress. Nia crouches back in and taps it. There was no point in me kicking that generator at any point in time. Like, none whatsoever. I effectively just wasted a bunch of my time for a very little amount of the survivor's time, and it feels terrible. And I do this as a survivor. Like, I'll be very careful. I'll move away as soon as I hear the killer terror radius. Killer kicks the gen, looks around for me for a little bit, doesn't find me because I moved away early enough. I go back and get on the generator, and then I'm instantly repairing it, and essentially no progress was lost. If that killer doubles back and does the same thing, and I'm able to move away again, I continue to just waste their time. Every time that I go back as a killer right now and kick that gen, getting that extra 2.5% keeps giving me value. There are times where I, as a survivor, or against survivors that I've played against, will be looping them and chasing them, and they'll make distance through a window vault to drop a pallet. They'll run up to a generator that's regressing. They tap it and they keep going. And I had that generator regressing. The generator is no longer regressing. I'm still effectively in the same chase that I was in. Now I have the option to go kick that generator, continue to make it regress, and get this little extra bonus. So tapping generators becomes more dangerous for survivors. I like that. I like that tapping becomes more dangerous. I like that you get an instant benefit for kicking gens. This will be interesting with some perks that currently exist, but I assume 2.5% of the maximum progress. I assume that when they say this, they mean that 2.5% of the generator bar is lost. So if the gen's at 2.5% completed, it's at 0% completed. If the gens is 99, you still take off 2.5% of the total bar space no matter what. It doesn't scale as the generator gets done. This change makes kicking generators more meaningful, even if a survivor stops it from regressing shortly after. Yep, because I still got some instant value out of it. I at least burned a little bit of their time. What is... Let's see here. 90 seconds times 0.025, right? Wait, is that really just it? So the time it takes me to kick a generator, I'm instantly removing 2.25 seconds of progress, which is what, probably about the time it takes for me to kick a generator. Okay, let's do, I'm just going to put that down as a note. 2.25 seconds of regression. Okay. So assuming it's 2.5% of the full 90 seconds it takes to do the generator, and assuming that I can use calculators effectively, 2.25 seconds is what I remove every time I kick a gen. So the survivor then has to be back on the generator for 2.5 seconds in order to make up the kick that I just did. If they just tap it, and keep running in a chase, let's say, or they tap and I come back, every time I kick, they have to commit 2.25 seconds to kind of get back to that point where they were previously. Okay, it's not huge, but it's nice. And in those tight situations, when you get down to that last generator, this is going to make a huge difference because there's a lot of times where you have that 3 gen, you kick the generator, you kind of shoot the survivors, you go to another generator, you come back, the survivor's like already tapped it, you can come back, you can kick it, you can kind of really slow and control that 3 gen. It's going to be more important that survivors are avoiding putting themselves in 3 gens. Additionally, survivors must now decide whether they should tap a generator to prevent regression. This is what we were just talking about. This allows killers to kick it again to knock off even more progress. Yep. With these 2 changes, we hope to reduce the reliance on passive slowdown mechanics and promote increased interaction between killers and survivors. I still think that at the end of the day, I still think you have. It'll be hard for me to see a world where taking one slowdown perk isn't still like the best choice. I think that this is great. I think that this is really, really nice for killers. I still like see these types of perks being really valuable unless they change these perks. Um, and then the perks that obviously aren't showing up here, things like Thanophobia. Pentimento obviously has some mixed value to it. But the perks that slow down the speed are going to become more valuable than some of these regression perks. Like so far, Corrupt Intervention pushes you off of early gens. Pop Goes the Wheasel is gen regression. Scourge Pain Resonance is gen regression. Hex Rune is gen regression. So all they're mentioning up here are perks that reduce the amount of progress on a generator. They aren't mentioning slowdown perks, which are things like Thanophobia, Pentimento, perks that make survivors take more time to complete a generator. It still feels like those are going to be valuable, and with the extra 90 seconds, it feels like those are going to be more valuable because they're now effective for a longer period of time. So I don't think that this necessarily stops that, but I do think that they're taking that step towards making those types of perks, whether they're instant regression or whether they're perks that slow down generator progress. I think that because of these two, it's a little bit less required. And a lot of these I anticipate we're going to be seeing changed in the meta perks because these are all very meta perks right now. Okay. Okay, cool. This is overall really good. A little bit more time in the game is great. I think that this is going to have a bigger impact in, like I said, in the mid to late game. I don't think it's going to have as big of an impact in the early game. Um, this I think is going to be just a nice feels nice. I don't think it's going to fundamentally change the game. I do think that it will change some survivor choices, which will be good. But I don't think that the actual percent reduction is probably big enough to really make a huge impact. But it's good. It's nice. It's a step in the right direction. I don't think it oversteps. So that'll be really cool. Okay, general killer improvements. The average kill rates, how many survivors are killed each trial on average, are a little lower than we'd like, a sentiment echoed by many community members. To ensure the killer feels like an unstoppable force to be feared, we're making slight improvements to many aspects of killer gameplay. Okay. We've reduced the time it takes to break walls and pallets by 10%. Okay, cool. So just a little free brutal strength. Generators can also be kicked 10% faster. Oh, nice. Okay. Okay, so let me just finish the section. While these changes may seem small, a fraction of a second can be the difference between hitting a survivor and them reaching a pallet. This is great. I love this. I love that this is small, but that survivors get a little bit less value for dropping pallets. Uh, Kicking generators is a little bit more efficient. So I'm spending 1.8 seconds every time I kick a generator to cut off 2.25 seconds of that generator's time. So um, in a very simple sense, it's time efficient for me to kick a generator because I'm instantly getting more time off than it took for me to do it. It does get weird in the asymmetric action economy where there are 4 survivors doing things versus just me. But this is great. I like that this is shorter now, and I'm getting an instant benefit. I think this paired with that 2.5% regression makes kicking way better. I like that this is going to hopefully make survivors who, especially in like that mid to late game situation where you're behind on hooks, and survivors can just run from pallet to pallet and just okay, run to this pallet, drop it, wait for the killer to kick it, run to the next pallet, drop it, wait for the killer to kick it. Uh, Cutting down the time it takes to break the pallets and making that just a little bit less effective. Again, not going to break the game, but I think it's going to be very helpful. Um, we've reduced the cooldown for successful basic attacks by 10%. Cool. And reduced the duration of the survivor's speed boost upon being hit by 10%. Okay. So again, fractions of seconds, but this is a game where fractions of seconds matter. Um, I like it. I'll be interested to see how this stacks with Save the Best for Last, because that's going to be very interesting. This is also going to be like this, the speed boost reduction is also going to be great for Nemesis, who has to essentially give survivors up to 3 if you're trying to increase your tentacle corruption thing. Um, Survivors gaining slightly less distance upon being hit, running a long distance to a safe area, making that press W a little bit less effective when you get injured. Cool. Um, Again, just small little tweaks. I like all of these. I'm pretty okay with, for the most part, with how DBD works. There is kind of an interesting thing up here to me, which is that a lot of games for me in DBD, I very rarely get 2K games. I either get a 3 or 4K, I get a 1K, or I get 0 kills. It's very rare to run into that 2K, and I'm curious if these small adjustments make the 2K game more likely. It's just the game state is so fragile that it's easy to snowball one way or the other. And I'm curious how these affect that and create more close games where you get a 2K or you barely get a 3K. Because that's where I'd kind of like to end up. Obviously, losses are gonna happen. Like you need to expect and be ready for 1K games. But these little tweaks are all nice, and I'm already seeing Bloodlust, which is a really cool mechanic that does not get enough value early enough. If you're bloodlusting and relying on bloodlust, you're in a really bad spot. In most cases, bloodlust does not activate, though there are rare cases where it can be necessary. Yes, there are certain loop locations where the only way you're going to get a hit on the person without investing in breaking the pallet, giving them a chance to get to another loop section, the only way you're going to get the hit is with bloodlust, or like you really need to have a good mind game and they really need to mess up in their response. The long buildup often leaves killers in a bad spot, even if they eventually get a hit. We are adjusting Bloodlust tiers to activate after 15, 25, 35 seconds of chasing rather than 15, 30, 45. Okay, so Bloodlust 1 still doesn't appear faster, and Bloodlust 1 has always felt bad. But these lower tiers, especially the tier 3, which you should never hit tier 3. Like, if you hit tier 3, you're really in a bad space. And that's okay. You might be learning killer, you might be new to killer, and that just might be where you are. Um, But getting to tier 2 5 seconds earlier is going to be nice. And getting to tier 3 10 seconds sooner than what you were doing before, like, again, you don't want to ever be tier 3, but that's also going to be good. This will be really helpful. These changes in general are going to be really nice for those survivors who are using the incentive to come over and play killer for the first time. And they're going to have a much more friendly killer experience because they're not going to have the same looping skills, and this is going to really help kind of pare that down. This is overall like huge bust for killers so far. Like a lot of little things that look like they could add up to really improve killer experience. This does make me feel scarier as a killer. There's a lot of, I feel like as a killer, I'm on like a very, very thin ice, and like I'm just like trying to manage like 4, 5 different dumpster fires that are happening on the map at any given point in time. And I don't feel like this powerful, unstoppable force in a lot of games as a killer. I feel like I'm trying to really manage a horrible situation. Like I'm the one guy trying to get the job done, and there's 4 people who are just trying to sabotage me at every change. I think all of these small changes together are going to add up and really kind of make me feel scarier as a whole, and I'm excited for it. And yeah, I kind of agree with them here. We accept bloodlust will become even more uncommon outside of exceptional circumstances. Um, like I said, you don't ever want to be in tier 2 or tier 3 bloodlust. But in those situations where you're stuck there, getting to that sooner is going to be nice. Can have ramifications on the game. We will be watching closely to ensure that nothing gets out of hand. Okay, cool. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of this gets tweaked or changed a little bit after the fact. They're making a lot of changes all at the same time. It's gonna create some weirdness, and I think you need to go into playing the games with the understanding that the game's gonna feel different, and stuff that you're used to and expecting and things that felt comfortable are no longer gonna be comfortable. And it's gonna take time to fine tune, adjust, and kind of get things fixed. So just be aware that that's probably gonna be it's a necessary component to any time a game makes big sweeping changes. Behavior is obviously trying to do this to kind of increase the quality of the game overall. So give them a little grace. On the survivor side, there's a clear preference. So camping and tunneling for perks that grant a second chance. Yes. Borrowed time, decisive strike, dead hard. Yep. This is the power triplet right here. Avoid certain death leading to extreme usage rate. A benefit of these second chance perks is how they help prevent unfun situations, namely being camped or tunneled out of the game. I would say that's very true for borrowed time and decisive. I would say true for Dead Hard, but Dead Hard's purpose is, I think, way more than what they're naming here. So I'm kind of curious why this one in particular is here. Decisive and borrowed time absolutely exist as anti-tunneling perks. It feels great when you go through a game, you see that all the survivors had those two perks, and you never noticed it as a killer in the match. That's like one of the best feelings. In order to incentivize a meaningful change to the meta, it was clear that we needed to address these controversial tactics. Second chance perks should be nice to have, not essential to ensuring enjoyable gameplay. Moving forward, survivors will receive a 5-second endurance effect after being unhooked, so they get a baby borrowed time baseline. This gives the unhooked survivor an opportunity to reach a nearby window or pallet for another survivor to position themselves for a protection hit. Okay, this is the interesting one. The second piece. So as a killer, my biggest issue with borrowed time isn't that borrowed time exists to work as intended. It's that I'll be coming up to survivors right as they're unhooking. Um, and my intent as the killer is to go for the survivor that unhooked and get them down, not tunnel that other person. And that other person who just got unhooked with borrowed time will be the one working to take the protection hit and do the body block. Because they have borrowed time, that hit is free, it gives them distance, it lets them get out. So frequently, that's where I see borrowed time used in my games. It's not me trying to down that survivor and them getting a free out, it's them body blocking me. That's been my biggest issue with borrowed time, is that survivors use it aggressively to block for the person who's doing the unhooking. Um, so this is interesting. The 5-second endurance basically gives every survivor a brief opportunity to try and do that, though I, as a killer, will know that they have those 5 seconds. So, and 5 seconds isn't a lot of time. You can't really body block for a killer with just 5 seconds. You do have to move for something. Um, you have to get yourself to a safe space. So I'm okay with everybody getting that baseline. The killer knows it too, so it's a known information that hitting this person right away is not good. It's gonna still feel really bad when, as a killer, I get a survivor and a hook that's just out in Narnia, right? There's no pallets, or the pallet that was there has already been broken. There's no windows to vault through, so I just wait 5 seconds and then I hit that person and they go back down. So it doesn't fully solve the issue that exists with tunneling a survivor, especially because as the killer, I know that it's there. I just wait. Um, so the idea is really cool. Um, I don't think that it's long enough to kind of inflict the issue that I have with borrowed time, which is where survivors use it aggressively and kind of force value out of it. Um, I think that this kind of needs to be paired a little bit with map design. to try to make sure that, okay, most hooks within a 5-second window, you should be able to get somewhere safe in order to get value out of this. Hopefully, more hooks than not give survivors the opportunity within 5 seconds to get somewhere where they can start looping the killer if the killer goes after them. What'll be interesting too is, does this thing give the killer just like, well, hey, I can't tunnel survivors anymore because you have that 5-second endurance? Oh, this other thing. Okay, I see the haste effect. Additionally, the unhooked survivor will receive a 7% haste effect for 5 seconds. This will make them harder to catch and encourage. Okay, so they have the 5 seconds, and for that 5 seconds, they're also faster. Excuse me, sorry, I'm drinking Coke. Both effects will be canceled prematurely if the unhooked survivor performs what we now call a conspicuous action. These are interactions other than being chased that would improve your chance of survival. This includes repairing a generator, healing yourself or others, cleansing or blessing a totem, sabotaging a hook, unhooking. So, okay, so doing stuff. So 5 seconds endurance, 7% haste effect for 5 seconds. I really, really like this a lot. The biggest issue that I have from the killer perspective is there's an unhook that happened. I'm close enough that there's value in me going there because I know that there are 2 survivors there. What's going to happen is when I move to that location, the injured survivor being forced to move away because they're in an unsafe spot is going to be so much easier to find and target and get because they're probably leaving scratch marks. They are definitely bleeding and they're making noise. I'm going to find them so much more easily than the healthy survivor who, in non Swifts, is probably crouching and hiding and being like, okay, cool, I'm going to save you and then I'm going to leave you out to dry. Like, you're on your own. I've gotten you off the hook. I know you're on death hook. I know I'm on 0 hooks, but I'm just going to hide now. 7% isn't game breaking. 5 seconds of endurance isn't game breaking, but this will give those injured survivors a better opportunity to get away and make distance and become an unappealing target than if they didn't have it. So I like this a lot. I like both of these. I think that the endurance effect isn't long enough. I think that I'm still going to be seeing borrowed time issues unless borrowed time has changed. But I think that these two effects together are going to be really helpful for the toxic killers that I hear people in my community talk about who I get unhooked, instantly get hit, and it sucks. And I just don't get to have a fun game. The killer at a minimum is going to have to wait for 5 seconds, which does give you time, especially with the haste, to potentially get somewhere safer. Now, there are definitely going to be people who that 5 seconds just does nothing. That 5 seconds and 7% haste just isn't enough to get you somewhere safe. The hook's in an absolute dead zone. It's totally unsafe. But the free benefit will be good, it will be helpful, and it's going to help in at least some cases. So that's cool. And then I like this. I like that they can't abuse it, right? They can't do other things. This is purely designed to help you get away. If you start doing anything else, you lose these benefits. Great. We hope survivors can switch up their perk loadouts without fear that camping and tunneling will cut their next match short. Great. Um, I don't think this solves the issue I had with borrowed time, and I don't think it solves the issue that I've had with decisive, where people will bait them intentionally to force value. Whereas a killer, I'm not trying to like tunnel you, but you're making yourself so easy to chase that I down you, pick you up, and then you're like, cool, I got decisive, this is fine. Or I see a survivor that unhooks another survivor. I'm going for the healthy survivor. The injured survivor realizes that and body blocks me so that they can get borrowed time value. I'll frequently then just go for them. But then I'm still probably dealing with a survivor who also has a decisive strike. And so they have like a huge amount of they could just be super bold because they've got borrowed time to block for a little while, try and give their friend a body block. If I choose to go for them and they have decisive strike, because they're literally just sitting trying to get in my way to stop me from getting to their healthy survivor, which is what's considered, in my opinion, like the less toxic choice. I down them and pick them up. Then they're like, haha, I've got decisive, and they get away. I think these two are very problematic because of how they can be abused. I think they do a great job with their intended use, but I think that they also are very abusable. And I think that's the key issues that I have with them. Okay. Meta perk changes. So we'll see what happens with them here. For this update, Perk changes fall into one of two categories: meta perks that are used too often, and non-meta perks that serve a similar purpose but aren't used as much. Sorry, I've got like a little tingle in the throat. I'm getting a little congested. We're going to keep going. We understand that many of you have grown attached to your favorite perks and loadouts. Unfortunately, shaking up the meta inevitably leads to a few changes. Rest assured that our goal is to provide alternatives that align with your preferred playstyle while widening the scope to include more viable perk options. I didn't process anything I just read. That was a lot of words. uh, it's also important to note that not every meta perk is equal, and each was considered on a case-by-case basis. So what are Dead by Daylight's meta perks? By referencing both community feedback and internal data, we can see that some perks stand above the rest. For killers, BBQ and Chili, Hex Ruin, Pop Goes the Wheasel, Corrupt Intervention, Tinkerer, Hex, No One Escapes Death, Scourge of Pain Resonance. Okay. BBQ and Chili is good because BBQ and Chili just like it tells you where survivors are, which is great, but there's a lot of perks that do that. There's a lot of perks that just like, hey, here are the auras of survivors. Uh, the nice thing about BBQ and Chili is that it guarantees you a direction, but it forces you to go for further survivors. Because survivors that are close and nearby, you're not going to get anything on. Survivors in lockers, you're not going to get anything from. The reason you take BBQ and Chili, though, really, is for the bonus blood points. You take BBQ and Chili because it takes an insane amount of time to farm out the blood points you need. Um, and you just want to get more blood points in a match. I put BBQ and Chili on a bunch of my killers, and I never even like pay attention to the auras that I read. I don't even look for them. I just like put that on there because I'm gonna get more blood points in a match. Um, and their overhaul system is gonna limit that a little bit. um, Ruin is just like this amazing regression perk that if you can provide global pressure and really move around the map, it's incredible. And it's okay if you can only apply a lot of pressure in one place, but you find those high value gens. Um, it's really, yeah, I don't know. It's very noticeable. The extra regression speed can be crippling. As a survivor group, if you can't find the totem, it can be backbreaking, especially as you get into the end game. If you get yourself a 3 gen with Ruin, you're just toast. If you can't find the Hex totem, or the Hex totem's in an easily defended spot, you're in a ton of trouble. Um, Now, if you can find the Hex totem and deactivate it, obviously you just kill a perk. But the fact that Ruin automatically causes generators to regress, the killer doesn't need to spend action economy kicking the generator. Um, it's very powerful. There was a section in time when I would play Survivor that I would always bring small games so that I could always queue in and just look for totems, specifically because of Hex Ruin and how powerful it felt if you couldn't find the Hex to remove it. And then as a secondary, I could just cleanse hexes and prevent No One Escapes Death from ever coming up. Ruin has counterplay because you can find the totem, and if you do, then you just remove a killer perk. But in those situations in the game where you can't find it, it can be really crippling. Um, because its value, I would argue, increases as the game goes on. And when you get down to just needing that last generator and the killer can kind of patrol around, um, it can really hurt. Pop Goes the Wheasel has just been a go-to consistent perk that is always good on every killer because just being able to go up to a generator and just destroy a huge portion of its progress is absolutely invaluable. It's really, really good. It's there's no reason not to take it, right? You're always getting value out of it as long as you can get some hooks. And if you can't get hooks, you're not in the game anyways, so it doesn't matter. Um, but as long as you're getting hooks, you're getting huge value out of it. Corrupt Intervention is, I would say, of these, Corrupt Intervention is probably the one that I consider the least valuable on like a full game perspective. There's certain killers where it's required. Trapper and Hag we've talked about. But like on a killer like Myers, like I kind of like on Myers, I'd rather have Lethal Pursuer than Corrupt Intervention because I kind of want to know where the survivors are so I can go stalk them right away. and corrupt intervention kind of anti-synergizes with that. Although I have sincerely, like, really thought about corrupt intervention on Myers just to prevent them from being able to be on their first generators, because it would also just push them out. Corrupt intervention, I think, is less so blocking the furthest generators, more so forcing survivors out of their starting positions and really forcing them out into the map. I think that that's what's really cool, is that, like, you can't just like start at the generator you spawn right next to. You have to go out, and that forces you into a state of, and that forces you into a place where you aren't safe, um, because then you could run into the killer. Tinkerer, I honestly, I don't think Tinkerer needs a change. I think Tinkerer's really good. Okay, I think Tinkerer with the increased gen time probably needs a change. I think that previous Tinkerer was okay. I think that it's an information perk, but it's just an information perk, and you can't always capitalize on that. It's obviously stronger on killers like Nurse, Blight, Hillbilly, who can like move to that spot really quickly. Freddy or Onryo, they can teleport over there. It's more valuable on some killers. I would say that of these, this one probably, in my opinion, less necessary of a change. Everybody's been of the opinion that no one escapes death and needs a change. I don't even think it's that amazing of a perk. I think it's a really good new killer perk to try and guarantee that you get a kill. Um, but survivors hate it. I don't think killers love it. I don't think. I hope that most killers don't feel good taking it. But I do think it's helpful for new killers to get value out of it, and I hope that that stays. Scourge Hook Pain Resonance just does too much. It does too damn much. Okay, you've hooked a survivor. For hooking the survivor, you instantly get gen regression at a pretty good percentage. You get to know which generator had the most regression, and you know if anybody's actively working on the generator when it explodes. Like, it gives you regression and two forms of information. It just does too much. Now, I've had games where I don't have a Scourge hook that I can ever use, and so I never get value out of it. But overall, it does a lot. It does a lot for a Scourge hook perk. And then Survivors, Dead Hard is like the correct exhaustion perk to take. The only reason you don't take Dead Hard is because it's too hard for you to pilot, and pressing Dead Hard at the right time is too difficult, which is legitimate. I have a hard time pressing Dead Hard. I kill myself a lot with Dead Hard. But the really skilled survivors who know how to press it, it basically frees them up. It's one get out of jail free card for them in any chase, and it's just so rough to deal with. Borrow time, my issue, which I've already talked about, is that survivors use it aggressively, not defensively, and they force body blocks. I have the same issue with Decisive Strike. Decisive Strike also feels really bad in the end game when, like, you're no longer like tunneling or really trying to get somebody out. You're just trying to get a kill. Like, I just want one person. I know I'm not going to get 2K. I know I'm not going to get 3 or 4K. Like, those are out of the question. But I played a decent enough game that I should be able to like get one person. And Decisive Strike, the doors open, you knock the survivor down. They have a minute where they can crawl towards the door, and you literally can't interact with them because they have Decisive Strike. And the only way that you win is if they mess up their skill check to use it. It feels really bad. Iron Will is powerful. Um, I think Iron Will is fine. Um, I think it's strong. I think a lot of people use it, but I don't think it's broken. Um, this is kind of this is like if Tinkerer was the one where I was like, I think they can probably be left alone. Iron Will is the one in here that I think can be left alone. Iron Will only procs when a survivor is injured. That survivor is still dropping pools of blood, so you can still get some information as a killer. Um, Maybe for Iron Will, I don't know. I don't know how I would change it. I'm curious what they do with it. Self care is interesting. Self care is really good when survivors know when they really need to use it and take advantage of it. Um, Self care is often a trap for new survivors who overuse it. And then Spine Chill is just amazing. I used to use Premonition a lot, and then I saw some survivors streaming using Spine Chill, and I'm just like, oh, that's just better. That's just so much better than Premonition is. This is definitely a scenario where Spine Chill is just a better Premonition. Um, Killers can counter it by not looking, but you have to do some really weird movement to do that. Oh, cool. What is this? Hold on. Can I pull this up? Percent of loadouts. Okay, I used to teach science, and I have an issue with this. I'm gonna assume that this is MMR, but the fact that somebody made this graph and didn't give me a title down here or a measurement, like percent of loadouts, cool, I get this, I understand what this is. What the hell is this x-axis? These are the things I noticed. This is what keeps me up at night. If you were ever a student for the few years that I taught, I hope this wasn't you. Okay, yeah, look at this. It high MMR dead hard is used in over 70%. Like I said, I just assume that every survivor runs dead hard until I'm shown that they don't. Interesting that borrowed time has like a dip. Like there's this point where it's just like people are like, let's not. But then obviously it's up there. What's this bad boy? It would be nice because of how similar these are, um, to be able to like do a mouse over and see what they have. I get that you can't really do that with a JPEG, but this would be super nice because I don't know what this one is. Is this is decisive? Never mind. Okay, I can see the color as we go back here. Yeah, so yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Unbreakable, I'm kind of glad they didn't mention because I think Unbreakable's fine. I don't have an issue with it. I love Windows of Opportunity. If you're out there and you're listening, you're a new survivor, pick up Kate Denson, get Windows of Opportunity. It's amazing. Spine Chill and Iron Will, and this is what I also think is interesting. Um, you see Spine Chill and Iron Will both dropping, and I guarantee you these two are dropping to make space for these perks. Like because these perks are jumping up so much, that's why you're seeing these two go down. It's not because Spine Chill or Iron Will are bad perks, because they're not. But survivors are like, I have to take Dead Hard, I have to take Borrowed Time, I have to take Decisive Strike. Like I'm at least taking two of the three. Um, and then you have things like Sprint Burst, which regardless of which one of these two Sprint Burst is, because these in my mind are the exact same color. They just gave up. They're like, yeah, brown. Let's make them brown. But you see that there's a relatively consistent usage. And honestly, for me, like those are perks that are healthy. Like if you have a perk that low tier survivors and high tier survivors are using with relative parity, like the fact that these are within like what a 5% margin, fantastic. You love that. The fact that new survivors use it like less than 1 in 5 like brand new low MR survivors use Dead Hard, and then almost 3 out of 4 of high skill survivors use it, like this is a problem. Um, Windows of Opportunity is kind of an interesting one for me. And what I'm going to assume, because again, these are the same color, I would assume this is Windows of Opportunity. I'm just gonna say this is it, right? I don't see adrenaline being more or less valuable in different tiers. But my guess, because this is my perspective on Windows of Opportunity, when I was at this point as a survivor, I was like, man, Windows of Opportunity is just a noob talent. It's just a talent for brand new people who are bad. I don't want to learn to use it as a crutch. Like, I don't want to overly rely on it. And as I've gotten better, I'm like, you know what? Like, yes, this is like good when you don't know like loops and stuff, but like it's also really nice to run to Killer Shack and know if God Palette is there or not to know if I can rely on it. Because if I can't, I'm vaulting that window and I'm getting to the next loop location as quickly as I can. Um, and then as I get better and better, I'm like, okay, like I'll still take it because it has that value, but like I want to take other things more, so I just want to like try and play around with other things. Um, but I think like this is a fine curve for any perk. I think if some perk had this, like okay, like it maxes out at that mid tier gameplay. Brand new players don't use it as much. High tier players don't use it as much, but like it definitely sees play. Like this is an obvious problem. This is an issue. The fact that this is highly valued by highly skilled people and has low value from newer people, and that essentially as people probably level David King up and get access to it, see it being used and learn how to use it, you just see this type of increase in value. This is not healthy for any game to have this. I don't think any game, if you have this, you either need to change it and remove it or rework it, or you just need to make it baseline and just everybody has it. Killers always know that you've got it, you know that you've got it, and you balance the game around the fact that this always exists. Because this is a huge problem. Okay, let's go back. Oh, and then the killer perk. I don't want to spend as much time on this because I just burned a ton of time. What is this? Locked? What do you mean by locked? Again, tell me this is MMR. Just please, please, for the love of mercy. Um, okay, so this is what, barbecue and chili, right? So as people get access to barbecue and chili, as they realize, dude, blood points are super important. They use it. You get to more experienced killers, and there's probably some fall off. Like I don't need blood points as much. I don't care as much about it. And then a little bit of an uptick. Yeah, Hex Ruin. Similar thing. This makes sense. Like Hex Ruin always has value. I think the uptick kind of in this midsection, and then we see it begin to taper off. Survivors get better at knowing hex locations and knowing where they need to go to check to cleanse. So Ruin's going to get less and less value as we go on. So this makes sense. Honestly, this feels kind of okay overall. Um, yeah, because you're considering that this is locked behind plague. So again, everything should kind of probably move up in general. Like the only perk that should start high and go down, like what's this pink one? Corrupt Intervention? Surprising. Oh, wait, no, this is Corrupt Intervention. This is definitely Corrupt Intervention. What's this other light pink color that I can't mouse over? Sloppy Butcher? Let's say Sloppy Butcher. No, it can't be. Iron Grasp. This is Iron Grasp. Absolutely, this is Iron Grasp. Okay. How do I know it's Iron Grasp? Iron Grasp is not a good perk, right? It's okay. And people realize that, hey, this perk, as they play and get experience, this perk is okay, but it's not very good. And the more skilled I get, I'm not using it because there are much higher impact perks I can take instead. Like this is a perk that very clearly does not do its job well. The player base identifies that and they don't use it. No one escapes death. This is exactly what I would expect to see out of no one escapes death, right? New killers who have a really hard time getting kills, playing effectively, doing much, see a lot of value with it. And then as people become more comfortable playing killer, we see just a nice steady drop off, fewer and fewer uses of it. Um, so you're going to see a lot in kind of mid to lower tier gameplay, and then as you get to higher tier gameplay, it's used less and less and less because it doesn't have a big enough impact in important parts of the game for it to really be a good perk. But it's just an unfun perk for survivors, especially if you can't find the Hex Totem, because you just get screwed over. A little surprised by Jolt. Jolt being the one, I believe. No, I'm worried. I might not remember it. Scourge Hook Pain Resonance is one of those. This is like another Dead Hard, right? Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, and then Corrupt Intervention. You're seeing the exact same issue we're seeing with Dead Hard, where like Barbecue and Chili hops up quickly because it gives those blood points and gives a lot of value, but we see this exponential growth. This is the same issue that Dead Hard has. If you're seeing this type of exponential pop up and just this boost, it means that the perk either needs to be baseline and everybody needs to know that that exists, or it just needs to be taken out. Um, I guess Dead Hard doesn't quite have the exponential, but it's like a very clear, just shot up, and like its final percentage is so high. Like none of these perks. This is also the important thing that people don't like. This is why axes are important, right? Okay, uh, Hex Ruin caps out. The capped use of Hex Ruin is still 1 in about 3 games, right? So 1 in 3 games as a survivor, you're going to run into a killer with Ruin. About 3 out of 4 survivors are going to be running Dead Hard. Like, and this is number of loadouts, so this is per survivor. So there's a huge, huge difference looking at killer perks and looking at survivor perks, right? And this does make sense a little bit. Like different killers are going to value these perks differently. So there's a certain level of the fact that killers are way more asymmetric than survivors are. Like this makes sense. But like, do pay attention to the peak being 50% versus 70%. These perks that are used a lot are still used way less than Dead Hard. Like this is a problem. Dead Hard is a problem. Just looking purely at this graph and this stat, if people value it this much, it's an issue. Um, and it's not an issue because I think Dead Hard's bad, but I just think it's unhealthy for the game. When you essentially feel forced to take a perk because of how good it is relative to its alternative options. Okay, let's look at barbecue and chili. So killer meta perks. Cool, cool, cool. Uh, Not because it's particularly powerful. Yep, that makes sense, but because of the huge amount of blood points it provides. This is exactly what I was talking about. Yep. It's too strong because it provides too many blood points. Choosing to go into a match without it massively slows your progression. When BBQ and Chili shows up in the Shrine of Seekers, it's like, you have to take this. You don't even take it because it gives you value. You take it because you get to level your killers up faster. Um, we do not want blood points to be the driving factor behind perk choices, so we will be removing the blood point bonus. Great. Honestly, I'm fine with it. While we understand this change may seem shocking, it's not. Please keep in mind that this update reduces the grind by about 75%. Yeah, like all of their overall progression system thing, like BBQ and Chili is nice, but it shouldn't feel required. Yeah. Uh, and this means for me as a killer, like I'm never gonna take BBQ and Chili. Like unless I'm playing like Onryo and I want to be able to like know where I can teleport to places. BBQ and Chili is not a perk I care about at all anymore. I ignored its aura effect most of the time and primarily just used it to get blood points. So I love that they're taking this out because I don't feel like I'm gimping myself by denying myself extra blood points. Like up to 100% more blood points in a match is insane. It's so good. You just get like a free almost flan every game if you think about that by just taking BBQ and Chili. Ruin. This is one that I'm very interested to see. Okay, generators regress automatically at an increased rate. Yeah, so Ruin slows stuff down a lot. A massive part of Hex Ruin's appeal is not having to stop and kick generators. Action economy is something that I mentioned, but I don't talk about it in detail a lot. But Ruin is huge for killer action economy, and you're definitely landing on this, as well as the ability to passively regress them from a distance. I don't have to do anything; it's just working for me. These aspects make Ruin a unique slowdown perk, so we're not looking to change them. To bring Hex Ruin in line with other perks, we're reducing the regression speed. Okay, so instead of like regressing at double the rate, it's now starting out at a reduced rate, and let's just assume that most people are going to have it at tier 3 for 100%, so it'll regress generators normally instead of faster, which is a big deal. Um, it gives survivors, if they can go back, or if there's two survivors, the killer chases one of them off, the second survivor is able to loop back around. Less generator reduction is big. I always felt like the auto regression was the really good part, but the increased speed felt almost frivolous. Like it almost felt like it was too much that it got to do this too, when I'm already getting this huge saving on action economy. This will reduce its power without destroying its primary appeal. Exactly. Um, After a survivor is killed, Hex Ruin will automatically oh, deactivate. So there are a couple things I like about this that I'd never considered before. Um, Taking Hex Ruin means that you don't want to. I mean, it reduces the incentive to tunnel, right? Because tunneling out a killer or survivor entirely removes one of my perks. I actually kind of like that in general, just as like a cool little balancing idea. I've never thought about the use of that, and I think that's really interesting that they did use that. Um, I like that a lot because this solves the other issue we were talking about, right? Where you just have a game where you just can't find Hex Ruin, like you just don't know where it is. Uh, it can create kind of a weird situation where Billy's on the hook and Billy's my friend, but we can't find this Ruin totem, and we just have to get one gen left. Do we just let Billy die if we don't have to deal with Ruin? Um, it can create some toxic survivor play potentially, where survivors are just like, we're just gonna let like that person. From my estimation as a survivor, that was a low value person, a low value survivor. They weren't very good at looping. They dropped a lot of pallets. Maybe they did something. They blew up a generator. I don't like this survivor. And now I can get rid of Ruin, which is causing me personally a lot of problems. I'm gonna let that survivor die on a hook and not deal with Ruin, which still probably is never the right call, right? You want four survivors on the board, kind of doing their thing. But I bet you there are some people who are going to say they're going to justify that. They're going to be like, "Well, I let them die on hook to get rid of Ruin." Um, So I don't like it from that perspective. I do like the idea of having, oh, whoa, nope, not you. I do like the idea of having, hello, these other people, of having hexes that are really powerful, like Ruin, but that like get turned off as the game goes because you as the killer are getting bigger and bigger advantage, and this kind of mitigates the advantage that you're gaining. And then survivors can still find it and turn it off. I like this a lot. I think that it still makes Ruin strong. I think that I would still want to take Ruin. Um, but reducing the regression makes it slightly less valuable. And then knowing that it will turn off if I kill somebody gives me interesting choices to make as a killer, more interesting choices to make as a killer. Um, I don't take Ruin a ton, but I think this actually makes me more interested in taking it. I still have to protect it. There's still a lot of negatives around it. But I feel less like I'm taking a perk that's just very clearly busted, and I'm taking something that is good, that is strong, but doesn't feel as broken. I'm curious what they do with pop. 25% of its total progress is like a big deal. It was very, very powerful. Um, yeah, in the here with the current prog 2.5%, those extra 2.25 seconds we're getting every time we kick a gem. Given that kicking a generator now removes 2.25% of its progress by default, we decided to tone down some of the numbers to compensate. This perk will now remove 20% of the generator's current, not total progress. Okay, cool. So this pretty much confirms that this is always 2.25 seconds of time. This is now always going to remove the 2.25 seconds from the normal kick, and then this extra chunk on top of it. This will make that are nearly done, but weaker against those with a small amount of progress. Yeah, I think this is fine. As a killer, we're already getting this passive baseline boost. Let's make pop a little bit weaker. Let's make other perks more interesting and more valuable. I like this a lot. Pop is cool, and I like pop as a perk. I've had a couple of games recently playing as Demigorgon where I would take Call of Brine, which I candidly like a lot more. I think Call of Brine's a way cooler, more interesting perk. But I knew that as soon as I left that generator, survivors were going to get right back on it, and like the Call of Brine would even be going off, and I'd be like, I have to go somewhere else to apply pressure to this other place, and I got almost no value out of Call of Brine. And I was just like sitting there, I was like, why didn't I just take Pop Goes the Weasel? Like, I already know that they're going to be there working on it. I know that they've instantly turned off the Call of Brine value. I could have at least gotten this extra time by chunking out that generator. Um, Bringing Pop's effectiveness down, still making it what it's meant to be, which is, hey, this generator is almost done. Let me like really take a piece out of it. Um, I think that this is a healthier change. I think that this comparatively increases the value of Call of Brine. I'm still going to have similar issues with Call of Brine that I had before, but Pop Goes the Weasel being my mental alternative is now a little bit less appealing because of this. This is great. And also, Pop Goes the Weasel just feels bad for survivors. Like, I got that gen 99%, and all of a sudden it's like all gone. Now, 99, it's still going to be like about the same, right? But bringing it down a little bit and making it less oppressive for those generators that you still got, like, let's say you're 50% through the generator, having it just be that much less effective, especially because generators now take more time too. This is a needed change with all the other stuff going on. Corrupt intervention. This perk makes the beginning of a match more manageable. Yep, forcing survivors to extend deeper into the map. Exactly what we were talking about before repairing a generator. We aren't looking to change this aspect. You can't like this. The corrupt intervention is a very clear niche that it fits. And I don't really think the only other thing that corrupt intervention competes with is lethal pursuer, and lethal pursuer, in my opinion, is fine. I think lethal pursuer is a fine perk. I think it's honestly, in my opinion, I take lethal pursuer way more often than corrupt intervention, so that I can get that early chase. I don't really care about the first generator. I don't necessarily care about the first two generators. It's really that mid to late game where I have a lot of value. Moving forward, the perk will deactivate once the survivor enters the dying state. Here's how I would like to see this changed. I like the idea here. Um, the idea is the killer wants to build early game pressure. Instead of the dying state, I would prefer if corrupted intervention okay, I'm thinking about it more. So my thought process was, instead of the dying state, it'd be great when the killer puts the person on their first hook. I see where that could be a problem because that would incentivize slugging. So that's not the right choice because the killer can be toxic about it. But corrupt intervention is going to feel really bad. If you get that survivor in the dying state, you pick him up, you get flashlight stunned. All of a sudden, this perk goes off, and you've still got 4 survivors on the field. Um, yeah, yeah, that's rough. I think this is still okay. Um, the dying state, you just need to be careful. You need to be conscious of if survivors start the game with flashlights, and if they do, you just need to kind of watch out for them when you go to get that first survivor. And honestly, if the survivors are looking for flashlight saves in the beginning of the game, like they're not going to be at those generators working on them, and you're still going to be fine because at most you have 2 survivors working on progress. Tinkerer is the one I'm interested in. Uh, so Tinkerer is a popular choice for the information it provides. Being able to prevent a generator from being powered is a game changer, particularly on killers with high mobility. Yep, Onryo, Hillbilly, Blight, even Nurse. This is a really, really powerful perk. It can, however, become a little oppressive when paired with certain regression perks. Therefore, Tinkerer can now only activate once per generator, but with the base charges increased to 90, killers will have extra time to approach. Yeah, it's honestly probably fine. Um, you still get your 70% progress. You get really important information about a big objective that survivors are getting ready to complete. Um, the only other perk right now that's like a once per is Merciless Storm, which is at 90% that kind of cool wheel thing. And Tinkerer often does just feel better. Now you do have to actively respond to it. You have to choose to go there. This is probably okay. It definitely makes it weaker. Um, I think it's fine. One of the biggest issues that occurs in DBD in really close matches, is that the longer the match wears on, um, I feel like the match really favors killers, and it continues to favor killers, and it gets stronger and stronger for killers because as the match goes on, survivors continually are eventually forced to use pallets, run through their flashlight time, run through medkit time, run through toolbox time. Survivors' resources diminish, and the killer's resources are essentially infinite. And by doing things like making Tinkerer one-time use per generators, this is now a tool that killers would have kind of in their kit that as the game goes on will diminish. And so as a survivor, if I have 3 generators left and I know that one of those generators has already procced Tinkerer, we've already gotten above the 70%, I know the killer has that, I now get cool counterplay that the killer is hurt for allowing the game to move into a kind of a long game state, because the killer can't just keep coming back to that generator every time I get it to 70, pop it below 70, and then kind of move away. Once it's gone, and that generator becomes safer. Um, I don't think Tinkerer needed to be changed, but I do see how this is a good change for the game, and I do like that some of these perks are very clearly losing their potency as you go later into the game, because right now the late game heavily favors killers, and a lot of the steps we've seen so far is behavior taking steps to make the game last longer, which will inherently be killer-sided choices. So doing things like this, doing things like reducing value from ruin, and kind of offsetting some of the strongest ways to extend the game, seems good. I'm fine with that. This is fun. NOED, no one escapes death. This is your noob tube, right? This is the I've got an RPG and I need to get something. I need to get something out of this game. This perks makes for a very effective comeback tool, though it falls out of favor in high skill games. Um, and I have a comment here. Let me read through this whole thing. We like the way that NOED encourages survivors to preemptively cleanse totems. I like that because it also slows the game down. We are not looking to weaken its direct strength. Instead, survivors will now see the Hex Totem's aura within 4 meters upon activation. This range increases to 24 meters over the course of 30 seconds. We believe this change will keep NOED a strong choice for end-game builds, while encouraging survivors to find the totem and attempt that last-second save. Okay, so survivors can see the totem in a close proximity that increases over 30 seconds. That obviously is matching up with the hook timer that a survivor has. I would kind of like, not knowing hook timers, I'd like to see this timer start when a survivor gets hooked or downed for the first time, maybe. Um, Instead of it appears to just start when NOED becomes active. I think that um, putting survivors on the clock while the survivor is on the hook is important for the health and life of NOED. Um, I like that the range increases. I think that's interesting because it kind of creates a little bit of bad luck protection for survivors who are actively searching so they can get their buddy off the hook. But this does seem to hurt the killer more if the killer can't get it down. Um, I think here's what I'm thinking about now that I'm seeing this. So let's talk about a couple things. So this perk makes for a very effective comeback tool, though it falls out of favor in high skill games. One of the first things I think, and this is my personal mentality, is that I always think about working towards the high skill games and becoming a high skill player. But I think it's important to consider the health of a game at all skill levels and making sure that people at every skill level is allowed to have fun. And if NOED is only used at low to mid tier skill level, and it falls off as you get to higher skill, I don't think that means that you can ignore it. And I don't think that means that you can discredit the level of fun that survivors have at lower skill level games when they're dealing with NOED and this high impact perk. Um, Here's how I would like to see this changed. Instead of doing this, which I think is fine, and I actually think that there's a certain there is a lot of elements that I like about this. I would like some indicator for survivors that the killer has NOED and let the survivors know that at the start of the game. Um, and they don't know what totem it's going to be on. They don't get any extra reading about the location of the totems, but the survivors know that the killer is taking NOED. Because that then gives the survivors throughout the course of the game counterplay to go cleanse Dole totems, to remove NOED's effect from the beginning of the game. And if they don't do that or can't find them, where they have the entire game duration to do that, NOED activates at the end of the game. Everybody knows it's there, and everybody knows it's on the field. What that also does for NOED is it gives the killer kind of this cool slowdown perk where you can either deal with NOED in the late game, or I can slow you down by making you look for it throughout the game. And you give the survivors kind of an interesting choice of, okay, are we going to risk dealing with NOED in the late game and just try and get these gens done and get out? Or are we going to kind of accept the secondary objective, which is clearing dull totems? If it were me sitting here looking at this now, that's how I'd like to see NOED handled. I'd like to see it be a known, this is going to be a hex totem that's going to exist. I think that'd be very cool. Um, yeah, wow, I actually think that's a really good idea for NOED. Behavior, if you see this, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see like a little like hex indicator for survivors right away, because there's no other hex totem I'm aware of where you see the hex right away. So if survivors start the game with that little hex icon saying that you're being affected by a hex totem, they can know it's NOED, and they can know they have to go cleanse totems. Pain Resonance. I love this perk so much. This is the one I'm sad to see changed. I know it needs to be changed because it does too much. It's an over-tooled perk, but I'm a little worried. This is what I'm scared about. before I read, I'm scared about it because it does have a limiting factor of Scourge hooks. And so the killer does have to put in a little bit of extra effort to get value out of it. You have to like carry survivors to hooks that are further away. You have to risk leaving yourself open to survivors interacting with you as you do that, and the survivor possibly wiggling off. You could possibly never get value out of it. Scourge hooks are this super cool idea that potentially can really, really backfire if you can't get value out of them. The most recent addition to the meta, Pain Resonance, allows the killer to remove a sizable chunk from the most progressed generator simply by hooking a survivor. Allows noise notification also allows the killer to disrupt the survivors before they can continue repairing. A jack of all trades of sorts, granting both a powerful regression effect and crucial information. This is all accurate. With that in mind, we are removing the loud noise notification. Instead of exploding, the affected generator will now spark upon losing progress, and survivors will no longer scream. We believe this will ensure Pain Resonance remains a strong regression perk while limiting its informational aspect. So, okay, so my question here. So there's no loud noise indicator. The generator will now spark, and survivors don't scream. So does that mean that I lose information on which generator is exploding? The way that I'm reading that is now it just causes a generator to lose progress. Which I'm okay with. I think it's 12% progress. So we'll just say about 10 seconds, 9 seconds and some change. I think I would like a little bit back for the limitation. I think that I would like to not know if the survivor's there. I think the survivor screaming is really overkill for me. I think that what I would like most is we still get the regression as it is, relatively unchanged. I think that I would like the noise notification if the generator is within a certain radius of the Scourge hook. So if the generator is within like 16, 28, 32, something like that, I get to know that that generator blew up. I think that getting some info some of the time would be helpful and kind of balance this out. I'm probably less likely to take this because while the Jack of all trades initially was too strong, I think that only cutting 9 seconds off of a generator that I don't know where it is, so I don't know how to protect it, or even if I could or should protect it, I think that's okay. But I think tying that to 4 hooks that I, again, may never use, I think this might be a little bit of an overstep. Now, generators obviously require 10 more seconds of time anyways, but this one feels like a lot to me. And like I said, like Scourge Hook already has a special place in my heart. I love this perk. It does need a nerf. I think I'd like to be able to get some information some of the time out of it to kind of offset the fact to kind of offset the idea that you're going to get it possibly 0 times in a match, right? Ooh, Survivor meta perks. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. I'll edit this out. I think the cleaning people may be here. I'll be just a few minutes, guys. I'm gonna edit this out, so it's not even gonna show up on YouTube. You'll just see me hopping into Dead Hard. But we'll see you guys in a second. Well, guys, I forgot to unmute. Okay, so I've been talking about this for a hot minute now. I've read through Dead Hard. I'll reread through this. I've been doing all this commentary. Dang it. Because this is probably the most important one. This is the one that I'm least excited about seeing the change so far. So Dead Hard is that forward lunge. You have invulnerable frames while you're doing it. It's very effective. And like they say, in the right hand, it acts like a third health state, which I would absolutely agree with, allowing survivors to escape situations where they would otherwise go down. They talk about the 2 ways the Dead Hard is used: to dodge a hit, which it is used for, and for distance, which for effective, high-skilled Dead Hard users, this is where you really use Dead Hard. You do this when you have to. You do this as often as you can because this is so much more valuable, getting the distance, right? And the problem with this is that, as they say, in the later case, there's not much a killer can do. Therefore, Dead Hard will now provide the endurance effect for 1 second when activated. Okay, and this is where I have the issue, right? So I'm kind of okay with them doing this. Like, I think that the change overall is good. If you time it right, you'll prevent the hit and gain a movement speed boost, okay? So if you time it right, you will not get hit, and you'll get a movement speed boost. So Dead Hard will still dodge, and it will still make distance. And then my disagreement is where they come down here. This will move Dead Harding for distance and make it solely used to dodge hits, which killers can anticipate and even bait accordingly. The problem is, when somebody misused Dead Hard and you were expecting it, and they just like lunge forward, they would typically get no value out of it because you just waited for it. They lunge forward, you see it, you know, and then you know you can hit them, and it's fine. Um, with this, I'm assuming there's a couple things that are going to happen. I'm assuming as a killer, I don't see when they pop the endurance effect. So I don't know when it's active and therefore when it's deactivated. So I don't have that visual cue that it's safe to hit. So it's going to be a guessing game for me. Now, if I can see this, this will change a lot. So there is that. I'm functioning under that assumption. But if I don't see it and I hit a survivor, that's ours. No. Okay, give me 1 sec. You guys, if you're watching this, probably meeting Harper for one of the first times. She's just going to stay in my lap with me. Harper's very protective of the house, and there are people cleaning it. Sit down, sit down, sit down. Okay. So, effectively, Dead Hard is no longer just used to dodge hits. If you dodge the hit, you are then rewarded with distance. So the two effects remain. As a killer, I get potentially more say in it if I know that that they're activating it. If not, I have to kind of guess as a killer, and that feels a little bit weird. Give me 1 second. Yes. Oh, were you just cleaning and you hit the door? Oh, I'm so sorry. I lost track of where I was. I thought somebody was knocking on the door, and they weren't. Um, but effectively, Dead Hard now feels kind of like a double or nothing. I do think that it is now worse than it was before, specifically because you can't Dead Hard specifically for distance. You can't preemptively Dead Hard. You have to go into this risk situation, and you have to anticipate that 1 second window where the killer is going to hit you. So I think that we're a step better. I just think that their core design here, where you just use it to dodge hits, I think it's going to be in a weird spot. I think it's going to be in a weird place. I'll be curious to play it and test it myself. So far, Dead Hard is kind of where Scourge was, where I don't quite know that this is hitting the mark. There are certain things I'm losing, like the visual indicator that it's been used, because every other exhaustion perk, you know when it's been used. Dead Hard, if Dead Hard denies me that information as the killer, that's going to be a kind of a tricky situation to be in. So we'll see. I'm going to keep my mind open about it. I'll be very curious to see it when it's being tested and see it live. I think it's good that it's being reduced because I think it needs to be. And I don't know a better way to diminish it. I don't know that this is hitting the mark that I was hoping for, but we'll see. Decisive. Oh, Decisive. One of Decisive Strike's main appeals is its efficacy at preventing tunneling. In light of the upcoming base game changes, we expect Decisive Strike to drop in usage slightly. For the most part, we find the perk to be healthy for the game and easily avoidable for killers who choose not to tunnel an unhooked survivor. That said, at the end of the match, there's often nothing the killer can do to prevent survivor with Decisive Strike from escaping. This is exactly the issue I was talking about earlier. This is the key place where I have an issue with Decisive. I do think survivors can kind of put killers in a situation where the killer is kind of forced to go for the survivor with Decisive after unhooks, where the survivor will put themselves in a situation where going for them becomes the correct choice for the killer based on survivor choices. But let's keep reading because I do think they're fixing what, in my opinion, is the core issue. Moving forward, Decisive Strike will now activate once exit gates are powered. So does powered mean opened, or does powered just mean that the last generator is complete and the gate can be opened? I'm guessing it means that. So once you hit the end game, which is the survivors have finished 5 generators. In addition, the stun duration has been reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Okay. Okay, cool. We'll also be simplifying the description of the perk by conspicuous actions, which is basically survivors doing anything, not running from the killer. Okay. Um, I think this actually really helps with the 2 issues, right? Um, this prevents me as a killer from not getting the kill on the one survivor I can still hit to get it down and get a kill in the game. They can't just crawl out with the minute of time they're given. The reduced stun also just weakens it in general. 5 seconds is a long time to be stunned, and the survivors get a lot of time to get away. So I really like that. Because in those situations where a survivor is baiting out Decisive, they're still getting less value from it. I'm up and coming at them 2 seconds sooner. Okay, I think this is good. I think that Decisive still has value where it is intended to have value, which is preventing a killer from just going after a person 3 times in a row. I don't think you want to use Decisive as much because you get less time out of it. I like this. I really like this. You can't abuse it in the end game. You still get the value out of it if you're being, yep. Decisive. This is going to be a good change in my opinion. Borrowed time. This for me, this is the big one. The perk gets much of its popularity by granting counterplay against a camping killer. Considering a lighter version of borrowed time effect has been added to the survivor space kit, we need to update the perk accordingly. Borrowed time will now extend the duration of the endurance effect of unhooked survivors by 6, 8, 10 seconds and increase the movement speed bonus duration by 10 seconds for any survivor you unhook. These effects will be cancelled if the unhooked survivor performs a conspicuous action. While the overall duration with borrowed time is longer than before, we expect that having a lighter version in the base kit will cause the usage rates to drop. I don't know if I agree with this, and I don't know if I love the increase on the speed. Borrowed time's issue, in my estimation, is again that it allows a free protection hit from the injured survivor, who then gets a speed boost to get away at the cost of the endurance effect where they have to mend themselves. And if the killer continues chasing them, it doesn't matter. I don't know exactly how protection hits are registered, but I think that I, I think that borrow time is going to have the same issue that it has right now for me. I think that it does its job. I think that overall this is okay. But the issue that I was looking to be solved is the survivor getting off hook using the now because it's increasing it by, right? Let me go back up here. Generator speeds 5, so 15 seconds. Okay, so I think it lasts a little longer right now, right? So isn't it 12 seconds right now? So increasing it by 10 seconds will be 15 seconds instead of 12. So survivors are going to actually have it for longer. They're going to be faster. I think it's good for what it's intended to do. And I think it's always been good for what it's intended to do. I think that adding the base kit is fine. It guarantees the survivor time to get to a safe space, but it guarantees the survivor time to get to a safe space. And if survivors use that aggressively, they're going to block me from going after the other survivor because they can essentially do that for 15 seconds without any negative ramifications. This is the biggest miss because it doesn't address how survivors abuse it. It does do its job, and I think it does its job better now than it did before. I actually think this is just better, right? Right, because before it was 12 seconds, now it's 15 seconds. And as a killer, you still don't know whether they have borrowed time or not until you hit them. Um, I think borrowed time's it feels like it's getting buffed, right? Because now it's just giving a speed boost and an invulnerable for a longer period of time. And it's just that survivors got a baseline buff. I I do think that they're right that having a lighter version of the base kit will cause the usage rates to drop, but they've also made this better because before it was providing 12 seconds, now it provides 10 on top of the 5 already provided, so it provides 15 seconds. So they've made borrowed time stronger. I don't think we're going to see borrowed time drop that much. I think borrowed time for high skill survivors, they don't just use it to prevent tunneling. They specifically use it to block and kind of get extra hits, which they then turn into free distance. Um, this, I think, is still going to have, from a killer perspective, the issues that it's always had. Um, okay. I'll be curious to see feedback on this one and kind of what they think about it. I think that they're a little off on where they're going with this one. I think the intent is fine, but yeah, I the conspicuous action turning off is good too. Like not giving the survivor that time of immunity is good. I think that's an important addition because a survivor can't get unhooked, be able to go on a gen, touch it, I hit them, they're invulnerable, they go back, tap the gen, finish it, and get a gen done. That sort of thing. Okay, let's go to Iron Will. This is the first one that I would say some of them I'm not super psyched about. This is the first one that I think misses the mark. Oh, no, you're stuck in my lap because I don't trust you. One sec. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's go to Iron Will. This perk allows skilled players to mind game more effectively in many areas by silencing grunts of pain. To address its high usage rates, we are lowering the grunts of pain reduction to 20. Iron Will is no longer active when exhausted. Here's what I would have liked. I think a little higher than 75 would be good. It's definitely like a problem on certain maps, right? Grave of Glenvale, like the Dead Dog Saloon map, is just oppressive with survivors that have it because they can just hide in brush, and I'll never find them as a killer if they've got good attire on, like good camouflage. Um, I would almost say like 90% at max rank, so there's still some noise, but it is very quiet. I actually like the idea of it no longer being active when exhausted. Um, the whole idea is this is a proactive measure to not be found, not something where you can just like get hit, like go through your dead hard, go through your lithe, and then still have it, and you can essentially use it to bamboozle the killer. Um, I just don't know that Iron Will is that perk that is the core issue. I think that there are ways to play around it as a killer. Um, I think this is fine. I'm a little sad to see this one go because I love Iron Will. I think Iron Will is really fun. Um, I would almost prefer to see this removed in this edition, so it stays as a proactive ability. Huh. Okay. Though self-care has a divisive reputation, self-care in general is a trap. It's not that it's bad, but it's that a lot of survivors will misuse it and like really waste time. Um, Among the community, we were surprised to find that its usage peaks in the highest skill matches. Having a consistent and reliable way to heal at will is a powerful tool in the right hands. And that's the thing. Knowing when and how to use it is what's important because sometimes it's not worth healing yourself. It's worth getting on that generator and getting that generator done. On top of that, self-care increases the efficiency of med kits, allowing survivors to squeeze additional heals out of them. which is a problem. Self-care with good medkits is like, it's terrifying. To reduce its strength, self-care's heal speed will be lowered to 25, 30, 35. Okay, so a 15% chunk at the top rate, and the item efficiency bonus has been removed entirely. Oh, gross. Okay. I have noticed, candidly, in a lot of games recently, keeping survivors injured was difficult, and I know that some of that was self-care. I've had some Twins games recently where I had Sloppy Butcher, which should, in my opinion, be kind of the counter to self-care, and survivors were still healing pretty effectively. Um, so I'm not going to complain about seeing it nerfed. I don't think it's a very fun perk. I don't I don't like it. Um, I'll be curious to see its usage now, because it seems like it's just a bad perk now. Like it seems like they took it from a perk that could be used well in the right situation with the right tools. I think that both reducing it and removing the item efficiency is bad. Um, okay, I'll be curious to try this one out and kind of see how it plays. This is taking a perk that I already valued pretty low compared to other perks and what I could do with other perks, and has made it worse. Um, I'll be happy to see it gone as a killer, but not gone. I'll be happy to see it weaker and force survivors to spend even more time. Make its use more niche, because healing yourself up is a big deal, especially if you're a survivor who's very strong at looping and can get away. If you can get away, heal yourself back up, go find the killer again, harass them, let yourself get injured, get away, self-care. I've definitely run into situations where survivors are very oppressive with it, and strong Swifts who get away, self-care themselves up, come back and like keep trading who's taking hits. Like being able to heal yourself is a big deal, and needing to make that difficult is important. Um, I just feel like they took a perk that wasn't amazing and gutted it, but I'll be happy to see it used less. So I feel like I myself have like very different opinions on that. Okay, Spine Chill. This perk excels at alerting survivors when a killer is approaching, and in high skilled lobbies, the vault speed increase becomes the primary draw. There are a few aspects of this perk we would like to clean up. Spine Chill will now only activate if the killer has a clear line of sight to the survivor. This will remove the awkward counterplay where the killer must look away. Yep, this is what felt weird about survivors. Like I had to like moonwalk up towards generators if I thought survivors were using Spine Chill. Um, this will prevent the perk icon from flickering when the killer looks around and make the action speed boost more consistent. I like that, honestly. That's kind of nice. Okay, cool. This is honestly gonna make me feel way more comfortable taking what's it, premonition. Premonition again becomes more valuable to me for this. Um, I'm curious how clear line of sight is coded. As somebody who's done a lot of stalking on Ghostface and Myers, there are killers I can, or there are survivors I can very clearly see that I can't stalk. And if that's how clear line of sight is kind of measured in the game, you're gonna have some situations where you can very clearly see the killer can very clearly see you, and you're not getting spine chill. So there's going to be some weirdness to it. Overall, I think it's good though. I still like Premonition. I like more than Spine Chill, and Spine Chill is just better. I'm curious if in the non-meta perks we see Spine Chill. Okay. Overcharge. So overcharge, you kick the generator now has a difficult skill check. The survivor goes and tries to do it. They get a difficult skill check. If they fail, um, oh, this is totally different. Cause a kick generator's regression speed to go from 100% to 400% over the course of 30 seconds. So, oh, I like this a lot. This is kind of like a, this will be interesting, A, with Call of Brine. I'll be very curious to see this and how it interacts with Call of Brine. Does it stack with Call of Brine, or does Overcharge not have any value with Call of Brine until it exceeds Call of Brine's like base increase value? Um, Okay. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. I like this a lot. Up the generator aggression penalty to 10%. I don't remember what it is right now. I think it's like 7%. So I think it's like a 3% increase. That with the increased time it takes for generators to be completed. 25 seconds of incapacitation is huge. This is kind of replacing the Scourge hook pain resonance. But you have to go through the investment of kicking gens. Okay. These both seem really fun now. These actually both also seem really fun together because overcharge is going to get you more value to push the gen down, which means that you're more likely to get eruption because survivors won't be able to finish it. Knockout is, oh man. Let's talk about one of the most useless killer perks out there. Oh no. Those of you who like to leave survivors on the ground can have a little more peace of mind. Reduce cover. Oh, okay. Okay, okay, okay. This actually gives it some value. Before it had literally zero value. It did almost nothing good. The value that Knockout had was that other survivors couldn't see the aura of the survivor who got down, but it did nothing to the actual survivor on the ground. Uh, okay, cool. I still think Knockout's a bad perk, but the slower recovery speed's cool. Sure, we'll take it. Will I use it? Probably not. Um, do I like that it's getting some love? Yeah, I think it's good. To make healing in the killer's terror radius even more unappealing, Chlorophobia will now increase the speed of... Oh, okay. So I'm guessing the skill check meter goes by a lot faster, so it's harder to hit it. Okay, cool. Still a bad perk. But it could force survivors to fail a skill check, which regresses their healing state. I still just don't know why you take this over Sloppy Butcher, which is slightly less impactful, but also if you get the interrupt, you just completely remove their healing bar. Um, Sloppy Butcher just seems better to me. And sneaking up on survivors, but the basic attack requirement makes it unappealing for certain killers. Absolutely true. There's a lot of killers I'd like to try this on. Whenever the obsession loses a health state. Okay. So honestly, better on Plague, because you can like infect the obsession and then like just randomly drop your thing. Okay, cool. Remove the cooldown. Oh. Jolt is Jolt is honestly a strong perk already. Because again of action economy value. Um, if I let you down, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, hey. If I let you down, are you gonna be chill? We're gonna do the test. We're gonna let her down. We're gonna see if she's chill. We'll see how long this lasts. Oh my god. Okay, forget. Jolt's strong. They made it stronger. Jolt was already in a good spot. It's just better now. Let's talk about Lethal Pursuer. Lethal Pursuer is also already really good. Extend the duration of all aura reading effects by 2 seconds. So suddenly BBQ And Chili, Scourge Hook, Floods of Rage. 2 extra seconds on aura stuff. That's gonna be nice. It also means that Lethal Pursuer isn't just a perk that's good for the first 9 seconds of the match. Now 11 seconds, assuming it affects itself. It'll actually allow you to kind of pair it with other things and get value out of that with other perks. Okay, I really like this. I think that Lethal Pursuer is cool, but if you run into a situation where you have a good survivor who's able to still bamboozle you in the beginning, you basically just threw a perk slot away. And while I think Lethal Pursuer has a lot of innate value because it gets you into an early chase, once it's gone, it's gone. And if you didn't convert Lethal Pursuer into early game value, you're basically a 3 perk killer. So getting something out of it as well is really nice. Increasing, yeah, Gift of Pain just didn't do enough. It didn't slow down quite enough. Um, I think it maxes out at 9%, so popping it all the way up to 16% is pretty substantial. That with the slowdown is going to be good. A small little boost to Thanophobia. Thanophobia is getting a secondary buff because generators are taking longer in general. So any of these types of perks that slow survivors down, especially on generators, are already gonna get extra value. So I don't even know if this was necessary, but I'm totally happy to see it. 2% obviously is not that much more. We did what? 2.5% is 2.25 seconds. So the additional percentage isn't going to mean that much, but it's still cool. Oh my goodness, Monstrous Shrine. Let's talk about another perk that has no value. Long have we waited. Monstrous Shrine has received a rework. This perk will now convert all basement hooks to Scourge hooks. I never even thought of this. This is great. Additionally, Scourge hooks will now grant. This is so good. Okay. So Scourge hook pain resonance way weaker. Scourge hook pain resonance with Monstrous Shrine is fine. And this is one of the ways that behavior. This is one of the things, in my opinion, behavior needed to do to keep camping killers from being viable. I honestly, baseline, would love to see if the killer's close to a hook, the regression is innately slowed down. This is fantastic. This is exactly. I am so excited to do Scourge Hook builds with Monstrous Shrine now. Monstrous Shrine was a throwaway. It was literally a tax perk that would show up in your blood web and you never use it. This is so cool. This is what I'm most excited for so far. This gets my golden star because it's obviously not amazing on its own, but it pairs so well with Scourge Hooks and is going to create really fun builds. Okay, survivor perks. Calm Spirit. Basically, hey, if you want like the bad version of Iron Will that doesn't actually do anything, you take this. You can now open chests and cleanse and bless totems silently, albeit at a my one hope with this, because this is cool. Like, I read this part, I was like, this is amazing, because as a killer, hearing a survivor working on a chest, healing them, like hearing them doing these things is huge. Being able to do this silently is great. I hope that I get the choice as a survivor. I hope I can choose to do it loud at full speed or silently at reduced speed. I hope I get optionality when I go up and do those things. There's currently no way to use items with that, so I should be given either option when I go up. This is fantastic. Uh, when a survivor is being carried, use this information to your advantage to prevent Scourge hooks. Great. Hey, let's make Scourge hooks better. Let's give survivors counterplay to Scourge hooks. Awesome. So Saboteur highlights hooks for survivors with the perk, and now being able to see Scourge hooks, like, it's really good. You can also, if you're on a Swift, this is going to be huge for Swifts, because you'll be able to be like, they're being taken to a Scourge hook, or I'm being taken to a Scourge hook. I actually don't know if it triggers for yourself. This is really good. Very, very powerful. Bonding knowledge is now increases healing speed by a lot. Holy moly. So this is what's competing and removing self-care. So this is why the self-healing on self-care got worse, because botany knowledge is just better. But you now have to invest 2 perks into effective self-healing, whereas before self-care let you do it with just the 1. Okay. I take back a lot of what I said about self-care. I like that you can have the value of self-healing and that you can be a better healer, but effectively, to get what you wanted from botany knowledge or from self-care before, you now really need to pair it with botany knowledge, or else you have a very weak perk. Here's the one thing that's interesting seeing these, with some of these getting boosted, is that it feels like they're creating more clear combos and pairs that weren't meta before and might be. Like, you're going to see a lot more people who like self-care now taking botany knowledge too. And I don't know if it's good or not that, like Monster Shrine. Like, I love Monster Shrine. I'm super excited for it. You're never going to take Monster Shrine alone, though. You're never just going to take it. You're going to take Monster Shrine in a Scourge Hook build. And the question that I then ask myself is, like, do I like the idea that in order to get value out of Monstrous Shrine, I effectively have to take a second perk. Because I don't know that I love that. I think that every perk should be able to stand on its own as effective. And I don't think that Monstrous Shrine is valuable on its own. I don't think Self-Care, what they did with that, is valuable on its own. Calm Spirit is like on its own. You really want a Blessing totem build, and even then you want to be able to bless loudly and quickly. So the pairing's interesting. Off the record, oh my goodness. Okay, cool. Upon being unhooked, gain the endurance status effect for 80 seconds. Purely for evading the killer after being unhooked. So it's not for evading the killer, it's for getting a free hit. Okay. This is weird. This is really weird. I mean, it's fine, right? Because if you're getting even close to the full time from it, um, then you just effectively haven't done anything because conspicuous actions turn it off. So it's really bad from an action economy. But and it only happens after being unhooked, so you get max 2 uses out of it. This is the anti-tunneling perk though. Like if I hit a survivor 20 seconds after chasing them, I've wasted a ton of time for what's essentially a free health state for them. Um, but then the next time they get unhooked, I'm not touching them. This is potentially going to be a problem. This is going to be like the new Decisive at endgame. Not that I think it's going to be taken a ton, because I still don't think this overall is very good. But like this is where like you're running from the killer. You're definitely not going to make it to the exit gate, but you're close. This just gives you that free hit way further out. This is what you're taking if you were planning on Decisive getting you out. I don't think you play around it. I don't think it's amazing, but it feels weird. It feels really weird. Ready to recharge Lucky Break. Each second spent healing another survivor increases Lucky Break's duration by 1 second. Okay. Cool. Sure. Lucky Break was cool. It was a one-time use. You get it for a pretty good chunk of time, but then it's gone. This will help give you value in the situation where the killer gives up on you and you no longer need it, but you may still want it. And honestly, Lucky Break is one of those perks where like you can get hit, get the value, the killer leaves you, the killer comes back, and you still got some time on it. And if some of that time is spent healing, you get some value. And this with some other healing perks, it could work. Soul Survivor, I'm excited for. Let's read Pharmacy though. Used to guarantee the first time you search a chest, which you'd either hope nobody takes before you need it, or hide in a far off corner like a Medikit goblin. Okay, cool. I like this. So this does a couple cool things. Obviously, the medkit gives you access to healing yourself, so this kind of becomes more like gives you value for self-care, which is just taking a hit because of its reduced healing speed. You get it whenever you're injured, so this is where a killer injures you but doesn't down you, or injures you, you get hooked and you get unhooked and you've got this now. Um, but it also requires that you be able to go search a chest. So there is a time tax to it. So you're getting the value, you're being able to heal yourself, but it's still better to just bring a med kit if you're planning on healing. I like this overall though. Like this is one I'd run because it looks like it's fun, and you can potentially just like chain med kits, which is also neat. This is pretty. It looks fun. It looks like I like that. I'm definitely seeing competitors for self care, but the fact that you have to open a chest does add a pretty substantial time sink, which means you also have to look for a chest and find one. It's not going to matter. You never take perks in the situation that you're the only person left, and if you do, you're kind of Kind of going for a dick move, right? Um, Soul Survivor just doesn't play well in a team game. Soul Survivor is I'm playing for myself, and you don't want to play for yourself in a team game. Oh, I like this a lot. This works well with Stakeout. Um, it gives you cool information every time you lose a token because you can call out things like BBQ and Chili. You can call out Floods of Rage. Um, you can still get value. I'd I'd consider taking it, knowing now that there is value in it. Be more sporadic, making you harder to track. Your scratch marks will also fade. Oh, nice. Wait, is this supposed to be 345? 345 seconds sooner, right? Up from 123. There's no way that at tier 1, your scratch marks go away 5 seconds sooner, and once you've ranked it up to tier 3, they go away less quickly. This has got to be the wrong way. I like this. Sometimes as a killer, I really rely on scratch marks and being able to make scratch marks worse. Lightweight's going to be really cool with Sprint Burst. All right, Deja Vu. Oh. So this, I believe, if I recall correctly, Deja Vu basically like gives you info on generators. A 5% repair speed boost isn't huge, especially for how long that it lasts, but it's nice and it does give it a little bit more of a boost. It will be nice on maps like RPD, which I know is getting changed, but it will be nice on maps like that and indoor maps where sometimes you're having trouble finding generators, kind of giving that extra kick. 7% movement speed bonus to any survivors you unhook. Additionally, the perk now activates when the gates are powered rather than opened. Cool. So just guaranteeing from a question I'd asked earlier, powered just being that they can be opened. Okay. And I'm guessing that the 7% movement speed boost stacks with the 7% they get for 5 seconds, which makes you okay. It's still pretty niche in that it's happening at the very end of the game, but this can basically make a survivor what almost as fast as the killer and really get away. Um, so it kind of helps offset things like the nerf to decisive. It's fine. It's super niche still. We've changed the way Dark Sense works. Whenever a generator is powered, Dark Sense activates. The next time the killer comes within 24 meters of you, their aura is revealed. Ah. Okay, cool. A lot of times Dark Sense would give you information you didn't care about at all. Like, not one bit did it matter that the killer was on the other side of the map. This actually makes it pretty cool. Yep, I'm here for it. I like this. I actually like this a lot. This kind of goes in for like competition with premonition and stuff like that. Obviously, you're only getting it a few times. Um, but like seeing where the killer is for 10 seconds when they're getting close to you and just being able to really use that against them, really nice. Tenacity. Crawling away from the killer. This is still assuming the killer doesn't pick you up right away. But if you have survivors that are harassing the killer with flashlights and stuff like that, it does potentially add value. So that's nice. Hope. Hope is great for those who like to make late game saves, but the limited duration can cause it to expire at an inconvenient time. Yep. Duration entirely great. Yep. Hope is cool, but um, you should just get it because it's purely for end game. You should get it for the whole end game, which I'm pretty cool with. Oh, nice. This takes a relatively small percentage, turns it into a noticeable percentage, and gives you a more incentive to fight hex builds. I like that a lot. I actually really like that. Um, it can be turned off so the killer gets counterplay to it. Yeah, this is cool. It also helps with the slower state that the game's going to be in. I think looking for ways to increase your speed and efficiency on generators is going to be more appealing to survivors, and being able to get a guaranteed. I mean, 8% is not nothing. 8% is 7.2 seconds. So you're not going back down to an original generator speed, obviously, but you're getting pretty close. Um, and then if you get 16%, you're cutting off 14 and a half seconds about. Yeah, I mean, being able to do a generator faster than you did before. Much like BBQ and Chili, yep, same issue. Uh, yeah, so obviously this is not going to have as much value. Cool. Okay. This allows you to pick them up and gives them a chance to run away. There are so many times where a survivor would heal or pick another survivor up, and I'd literally just be sitting over there and I'd just wait and I'd whack them as soon as they came up and they'd go back down. So I actually really, really like the endurance effect. It really incentivizes me as a killer to really get there. This will be more interesting with aggressive groups that really protect survivors on the ground. With tenacity, there's going to be some more value. Okay. That following these changes, a new meta will surely rise. It's inevitable. There's gonna always be meta perks. There's gonna be off meta perks. There's gonna be perks that are valued very highly, and like there's gonna be a new dead hard eventually. Um, the goal is to prevent something from being as big as is dead hard is, right? The goal is to reduce this. There should never be anything that's this high. Ideally, everything is in the mix and everything feels like you can bring it. I think this overall this patch is doing a pretty good job of it. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it's a step in the right direction, which is the most important thing. We'll be closely monitoring the performance of each updated perk to ensure that none fall too far out of line. Moving forward, we hope to make meta-shaking updates like this on a more frequent part, on a more frequent part of our plans in order to keep the gameplay feeling fresh. I think this is what's most important, is that they can't just do this once and then kind of leave it. They have to. This has to be more of a consistent thing for them. I think that's what's going to be most helpful for the state of the game. Change is always a little rough and can be difficult if you're losing access to power that you really, really relied on before. But I think that overall, for the health of the game, this is good. With that, we've reached the end of this edition of the developer update. Kudos to those of you who made it this far. We did it, guys. It was a long one. As always, these changes will be available for testing next week in the PTB. Given the numbers of changes made, we'll be keeping an extra close eye out for feedback. We'll also be holding a live stream in the near future to preview the update and answer any questions you may have. Until next time, the Dead by Daylight team. Yeah, I am adequately, I am adequately helped by this. Um, okay, so going back, I think that a lot of these perks are better. There are some kind of feels like almost an intent for perks to be comboed, like botany knowledge now combined with self care. If you're going to take self care, monster shrine being combined with scourge hooks, so that you're really doing more of a scourge hook build. That part feels a little interesting. Um, I think Iron Will got done a little dirty. I don't think that this was the most necessary. I think self care is going to really drop in top tier play. Um, I think Decisive is great. I think that taking this out, which was its most abused point, was the biggest deal. I think that they missed the mark on borrowed time a little bit for the places where I have issues with it and how I have issues with it being used. Dead Hard's going to be very interesting. I do think it's weaker, so I think that's good. Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, I think, got a little over nerfed as well, though I feel that's less true now that there is Monstrous Shrine to kind of add value to it. NOED is good. I think that I would like to see the change where they know NOED exists at the beginning of the game. I think that's how I would solve NOED, but I think that this is a solution that really gives survivors a chance to make sure that NOED is counterable. It just feels weird that you only get value out of this perk at the end game, and then it very clearly gets to be countered. I think that it'd be way better if survivors just knew that it was going to be there, and therefore its presence was always felt throughout the entire game because survivors are then cleansing totems. Tinkerer having the single use thing is really cool. I think it again diminishes late game killer power. Corrupt Intervention, I like the idea of like both Corrupt Intervention and Ruin perks for killers turning off after certain criteria are met are interesting because they diminish the late game killer power. And then with all the changes, Pop Goes the Weasel, I think is a really good spot. Cool. Let's go over to the chatting window. If you guys liked this, if you enjoyed yourselves, I'm gonna probably have to take bit out here in a second. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, please do comment down below. Let me know your thoughts about changes. Let me know where you think I'm off or where you have differing opinions. I'd really love to hear what you guys think. If you're enjoying this, please do consider liking and subscribing. This is my first commentary like this, and it's very long. I'll be putting timestamps in this just to help you out. But I actually really enjoyed this. This was a chunk. I mean, we went for almost 3 hours, probably by the time I'm done editing. So, but it really does help. And then if you guys ever want to check me out on Twitch, we will be obviously playing with all this stuff when it goes live. If you guys really want to see it on the PTB, we can maybe make that thing make that a thing. Just let me know. But I had an absolute blast with this. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I hope you enjoyed kind of hearing my insights, and I am curious to see kind of what you think about it. That's all I got. Have a wonderful day, guys. Thank you so much for those of you who made it all the way through, who watched all of this. I know I talked a lot, um, but this is stuff I care about. These are things that are important to me, and I hope. Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is Cabinaroo. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. You can find me on Twitch or the next video.